B, turn right onto Atlantic Avenue. Turn right. In 1/4 of a mile, turn left onto Gorham Place.
to defend tires, and particularly where in action in Sonoma. Homeowners can do this. They can actually order special policies of insurance to get private firefighters and a service from them that, provides more than they get out of their public taxpayer dollars.
Yes, and this is not a new phenomenon. It started in San Diego. I believe AIG was the first company to roll out this, what they call private fire protection, and since then, I know Chubb offers it, and so does a company called Pure.
Actually, it started in 2008, and it's offered in 15 states, but when I say a lot of people don't know about it, I mean, it seems surprising when you say, boy, you have your own private firefighters out there if you pay enough, if you're well-to-do enough.
Yes, it actually was very controversial when it first got rolled out in San Diego after the Witch Creek fires. There was a big outcry from a number of industry people, the insurance commissioner, and CAL FIRE. And of course, the biggest concern at that time was there was a report that one of the private fire trucks had impeded access for the public fire trucks on a narrow line road. And when you look at the marketing material that these insurers have up on the web about the products and the special protection, they emphasize that they only go in when they're permitted to do so by firefighting agencies during a fire. But I think there's a sensitivity on that point.
I would understand the sensitivity. It's like a two-tier process, isn't it?
Well, it is, but it, like many things in the United States, money buys access to, first-class seats on a plane, or, there's this, we live in a capitalist society, so I think it raises issues, but I can see, there's an
fairness issues, maybe.
Fairness issues, absolutely.
Want to weigh in here, General Louise?
Yes, I would like to say that USAA Insurance has also started offering these type of services, and so we may see more companies offering them and more access to them. There's also a lot of things people can do to mitigate their property, and there's some really cool products for
Clear to bear right.
sprinklers for your roof and different things like that. So if we start with, some of the high-end insurance companies, but we're hopeful that it will filter down even more so that more people have access.
In 1/4 of a mile, bear right, then exit right.
Very good at working with the fire services because that is the goal, is to put out fires for all. And so they have become,
Bear right.
probably now are much more of a help and not, having an incident like that happened early on when they hadn't coordinated the efforts as well.
The one that Amy mentioned.
Exit right onto FDR Drive North.
There's a new norm, seems to be the opinion of many, with climate change. That is wildfires and the expectation that they are going to continue, and also a new evaluation of risks. I mean, some of the damages in areas in Santa Rosa that were considered low risk went up in flames, and one has to ask, where this is all going to go in terms of risk assessment.
Well, that is a big question, and United policyholders had been very active over the last year and a half with a group called the Tree Mortality Task Force that Governor Brown had created to deal with the fact that we have 100 million dead trees in the state, and in the 10 counties that are most impacted by those dead trees, and of course that combined with the drought, the insurers have been fleeing and non-renewing many of their customers, and so we've been working to try to bring back options for homeowners who want to protect their homes and help keep insurance companies a little bit calm. But we have an intersection here of technology. There's something called the Fireline Risk Scoring Model that insurers are now using to decide who they want to keep as a customer and who they don't want. And that's the technology piece. And then you have climate change, and the intersection of those two has not been helpful to homeowners in terms of having affordable, available options for insuring their homes.
I know you've been pushing that as your organization for ways to provide incentives for risk reduction, and that seems to make a great deal of sense. But let me just ask you about insurance overall. There was a report put up out of Irvine, the Corps Logic company. They said that roughly 60% of homeowners are underinsured by an average of 20%. What do we know now about underinsurance or non-insurance in terms of those who suffered fire damage up north?
Well, again,
Wait a second. I'm going to Amy here, Janet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Again, United Policyholders has been around for 26 years. You know, we started with the Oakland fire. One of the biggest problems we were dealing with after the Oakland fire was underinsurance. You know, people were severely underinsured. We have been trying to solve this problem for our entire existence through various means, but we haven't solved it yet. And the truth is, you know, we're on our third public workshop up in Sonoma. We've had overflow crowds, over 400 people, and you know, during the Q&A, you know, almost every hand that goes up says I'm underinsured.
And a lot of this involves no insurance for rebuilding costs, and they're failing to update the cost or the value of their homes and so forth. Janet, that's a big problem too, isn't it, that looms?
Well, what we ask people to do is to let their insurer know when they make upgrades to their home, and most of the companies send out notices to ask them to check in every other year and talk about, you know, did you remodel your kitchen? Did you put in a new outbuilding? You know, what type of improvements have you made? But then many of the companies offer extended replacement costs. So they'll offer 20% more that is on top of what the amount of insurance you pick. So those options are available, and we spend a lot of time encouraging people to make sure they have them. The other one that's really critical, I think, is building code upgrade. And so when you go to rebuild your house and the codes have been changed, you want to be able to take advantage of that better construction. So there are options out there, and we do spend a lot of our time at the Insurance Information Institute educating people, educating homeowners, and trying to help them understand why it's so important for them to do this. Because in the event of a loss like this,
Okay, I want to bring our listeners into this because we're trying to have this kind of like an open clinic because there are so many questions, and some of you may want to respond to the concern that has been raised about wildfires raging and insurers sending in private firefighters to protect homes of the wealthy. But you also certainly, I know many of you have questions about insurance and how to decode it and how to get the maximum and what looms in the future. Let me tell you how you can join us now by phone. Our toll-free number is available to you. That number to call is 866-733-6786. Please feel free to join us with Amy Bach from United Policyholders and Janet Ruiz from Insurance Information Institute. Again, your questions are indeed invited. 866-733-6786 is the number to call, or email us, forum@kqed.org, or go right to our website, kqed.org/forum, and click on the segment, or tweet us. Our Twitter handle is @KQEDforum. Let me go to a caller in Santa Rosa. Nancy, join us. You're on the air.
Oh, hi. I was hoping to talk a little bit about the opt-in form that fire victims like me are required to sign by Monday. It's a really complicated issue.
I'm sorry, Nancy, you lost your home. Yeah?
I did lose it, and
so
you know, I lost a home 2 years ago in the Cobb fire.
Yeah.
So I've been through this movie before, and I have seen what happened. We were not able to rebuild on Cobb Mountain, and I'm just seeing the same disaster play out in Santa Rosa, and it's just devastating. Part of the first issue is this opt-in form, and all of the fire victims have until Monday to decide whether or not to sign in. If we sign in, that means that the government will do the cleanup and guarantee that the cost for the homeowner will not exceed the line item deduction for debris cleanup that's in our homeowner's policy. So that's a good thing, is we know what the cost is going to be, and it's going to be not to exceed number. The downside of it is that if you sign this form, the Army Corps of Engineers and their contractors will come in and they wipe out everything. They could take your septic system, your foundation will go for sure, they could take out your driveway, retaining walls, assets that potentially could be reused.
Nancy, excuse me. I think Amy has some information for you here. Amy Bach.
Yeah, Nancy, your concerns, we've been hearing them we've been up there in the assistance center in Santa Rosa, so we've been interfacing with the county and also the Department of Insurance to really get a clear understanding of how this program will be working. And we have materials right on the homepage of our website, uphelp.org, debris removal decisions for 2017 wildfire survivors. And the bottom line is there is a form, there is a space on that form, the right of entry form. And yes, they did set a deadline for Monday. I think they just need to start getting moving. I won't be surprised if they extend that deadline.
Any advice for her on what to do about it?
Yeah, the advice is there's a space on the form to indicate items you don't want removed. But what we're telling people is, I know there are a lot of contractors running around with varying levels of expertise, but not shy about expressing their opinions, whether or not they're based on fact. And when you have a fire this hot, it usually renders anything that has concrete or rebar useless. So the chances of there being things on your property that actually you want to reuse is small. That said, you absolutely can tag items and you can work with the county to try to salvage things that you believe are still good. But the chances of your foundation being good are very, very small.
So Nancy, we wish you good luck, and I hope things go for a better turn. Thank you for calling us this morning. Could you say something, Amy, about a lot of billboards going up, a lot of law firms, in fact, concern about scams and, well, actually, all sorts of fraudulent concerns, yeah?
Very much concerned. In fact, the FEMA representative that we work with sent me just last night photos of flyers that are all over the place up there from law firms advertising, and they're not local firms, and I've never even heard of most of them. A lot of them are personal injury firms, and again, it pains me as a survivor advocate and as a human, because it's just that people would prey on disaster survivors.
Well, in fact, FEMA's been talking about duplicate claims and claims with false Social Security numbers and numbers that have been unfortunately what happens in the wake of disasters like this. But let me bring some more of our callers on. Lots of people with questions, and let me go next to you, Linda. You're on the air. Good morning.
Yes, I have a home in Santa Rosa that burned down in the unincorporated area.
Sorry.
And my question is that I understand that while I was insuring the home, that the insurance company contacted us every 2 years about any upgrades, etc. But right now, while we're dealing with the insurance claim, which could go on for months or even, a year or more, the costs for building right this minute are going up and up and up. So while they said that our house was insured for like $300 per square foot to rebuild, as we're speaking, it's going up, to $600 per square foot. So it's not going to cover the cost. I mean, and so how do they deal with that? They say, tough. I mean, and with so many homes to rebuild, the construction costs are just going up every day.
Some advice for her, Jenna Ruiz, from you?
Yes, I think it's really important to keep that discussion going with your insurance company. Have you gotten a contractor yet?
Well, we're talking to a contractor, but that's, everybody needs a contractor right now. I mean, contractors
right
here.
And that will be the important discussion, but many times your insurance company will also talk with your contractor for you, and that can be very helpful because they can help you negotiate.
Amy, can you help us here too? Amy Bond?
Yeah.
We have the wider problem.
Just to go back to the real bottom line, people are not underinsured because they didn't tell their insurance company about an addition they made. They're underinsured because the formulas that insurance companies are using when they quote the coverage A on structures they're not working right. So you no matter what we do, the bottom line is when you go to buy insurance, you're not the one setting that coverage limit. You know, the insurance companies want to push that fiction, but that's not how it works. Their formula is just chronically underinsured people. That said, most people we're talking to up there have somewhere between 180 to 250 a square foot worth of insurance to rebuild, and in fact, as the caller just said, costs are being estimated at $300 to $500 a square foot. So on a practical level, and yes, contractors are in very, very high demand and short supply. That's just a reality. So one thing people can do is to sit tight for a little while and let things shake out, and not make a rash or quick decision on hiring. There are a lot of we've got demand surge right now. Things are still quite hectic up there, and I think, you know, one of the messages that we've been putting out to all the people we've been speaking to who've lost homes is take your time. Don't rush into any financial decisions, because yes, it's going to be very hard to rebuild for the amount of insurance you have right now.
Well, since we're talking about rebuilding, I want to read a comment from Kurt, who writes, one problem I have with home insurance is that we must rebuild on exactly the same spot. There's some unstable areas, such as floodplains, earthquake zones, dry forests, etc., which should have never had permanent structures. You should be able to build elsewhere and still collect.
And that is possible. You can negotiate with your insurance company to rebuild elsewhere. So that is an option.
Well, talk about options. I'm also looking at a comment from Kristen who says, we're in the Oakland Hills in Montclair. We've had a few insurance carriers withdraw from the area, crossing my fingers that our current carrier won't do so in the wake of this fire. What do we do if there's no one left to offer coverage to our neighborhood? Anybody?
Right, well, there's always the California Fair Plan, which is the insurer of last resort, and it's always there. It is fairly stripped down coverage at a fairly steep price, but it is much better than nothing. There are also a lot more companies out there than you might be aware of, and we also partnered with a what's called a B Corp, which is a socially responsible business called Gapacopia, and they have launched a tool for you to find possible alternatives for insuring your home. So that is something to look into. But it is a concern, and Michael brought it up earlier. You know, insurers already have the jitters about climate change, and then these tools are making it much easier for them to drill down and insure only the lowest risk customers. So I think the reality is you're going to see a lot more people in the FAIR plan in the coming years, unless we can come up with some better solutions to spread the risk, and also to really help people, not just people who can afford the private protection that we started the show talking about, but help regular people know how to create defensible space and what to do to make their home less likely to be destroyed in a wildfire and more attractive as a customer to insurance companies.
And again, Amy Bach is Executive Director and co-founder of United Policyholders, a San Francisco-based nonprofit that advocates for insurance consumers. And here is Phil. Phil, you're on the air.
Hi, Michael. Phil Turner. First of all, I really appreciate your show. It's always thoughtful. Listen, I had a comment on buying increased fire protection. You know, we live in a Prop 13 state where there are serious restrictions.
Prepare to bear ride.
If my fellow citizens sort of decide that they want to have a lower level of fire protection supported by their taxes, that's fine with me. But if it's my priority to have an increased level of fire protection, I think I would have the right to do that, and I don't think that's a class sort of a thing. And if you look at it, there are all sorts of other examples, if you will, where there are business campuses or refineries or things where they have their own increased fire protection by having their own fire force. So I think looking at this as just a class issue isn't quite fair. There's sort of almost a minority rights opportunity here for people to go and buy their own fire protection because they think it's a heightened need or more important to them than maybe somebody else does.
Jay, you want to comment, Jenna Louise?
Yes, I think
In a half a mile, bear right, then bear left.
insurance as they choose, and most people are driven by what their mortgage company demands, and that's that's good in a sense because it does get more people to buy insurance and to recover quickly. But this is an option, and again, I want to say that more companies are offering it. It's really helpful in the line of fire. They spray foam.
They're right.
They help people mitigate their land because it is important to have the land cleared. But to Amy's point, we are really trying to make this information available to everyone, and we've worked with Cal Fire and all the insurance trade associations to get the information out about what you can do as a homeowner to make your home withstand in a wildfire. And there are things you can do. There's a whole institute, the Institute for Business and Home Safety, that has free information on their website. And there's readyforwildfire.org, and the Insurance Information Institute at iii.org has lots of information. Amy's website has information. So our goal here really is to help everyone so that they can mitigate, because the first thing is saving lives.
Yeah, again, Jenna Ruiz is California representative of the Insurance Information Institute, and I want to get to more callers here. Let me remind you that we're taking your questions about fire insurance as part of a new forum series on rebuilding after the fires with Jenna Ruiz and Amy Bach here in studio. And Amy Bach, Dion asked, could you comment on guaranteed replacement cost policies?
Yeah, so around the time of the Oakland-Berkeley fire in 1991, guaranteed replacement cost policies had come on the market, and some people had them, and they're great. They were great, because what they basically said was, no matter what the stated limit maximum benefit is for your dwelling in the policy, if it turns out it's going to cost more to put your house back, we're going to pay that. So we were guaranteeing to replace the policy, or the house. The problem then was that because some people had it and some people didn't, there was a lot of big uproar, big outcry at that time, and insurers stopped selling it completely after the Oakland fire because they felt that they paid out too much as a result of having sold it to some people. But then, about 20 years later, the product was starting to creep back, and AAA was starting to sell kind of a version of it. But you really can't buy it anymore generally. So your best bet is to try to work with your insurer to get that coverage A number as accurate as you can on your dwelling, and then buy the biggest extended replacement cost percentage that you can afford, plus code upgrade coverage, and hope that
Prepare to bear left.
right.
And if you have questions, you got to have our number. Again, it's 866-733-6786. It's toll free if any questions that you have. And looking at a comment from a listener named Stephanie who says, guaranteed everyone in this state is going to see their rates shoot up next spring. And when you think of the fact that we're talking about $33 billion in California wildfire so far damage, only 15 insurers so far, it's definitely going to go up. Stephanie, I'm afraid, is right. Let me go to more of your callers and more of our callers. Dan joins us from Millbrae. Dan, you're on.
Hi. So kind of similar to the earlier question, but which is I'm trying to work with my insurance company to update my coverage, and they were basically saying, oh yeah, your house is going to be replaced at $250 a square foot. It took like a lot of twisting to even get it up to like maybe 300 or 325, and I know that in the Bay Area the building cost is continuing to escalate.
In a half a mile, bear left toward I-95 George Washington Bridge.
The building costs in the Bay Area. So just that's my question for the panel.
Yeah,
That is true. It is. There's two problems here. One is that the law doesn't reflect reality. The law protects insurance companies and agents and says they just have a general
Bear left.
with you, but they don't have a specific duty to adequately insure your asset. And the problem is that the public doesn't know that. So there's a really big disconnect between the law and reality. We all depend on insurance professionals to tell us how much insurance we should have on our property, because we may know
In a half a mile, bear left onto I-95 south toward George Washington Bridge upper level.
And because they know consumers are price sensitive at the point of sale, they chronically underinsure people and know that the only time it's ever going to be a problem is when there's a total loss, which is statistically very rare. So we do have a pretty serious problem on our hands. And I think the big question coming out of these North Bay fires is going to be, is the law going to change? You know, there were 4 judges who lost their homes up there. You know, how long is this fiction going to be allowed to be perpetuated in the courts?
And Janet Ruiz, let me read a comment from Sarah, who gives some advice here, which I'd like to hear your thoughts about. She writes, last spring I had a plumbing disaster. I had premium homeowners coverage, but got a low settlement for reconstruction. Since then, I heard most claims are reimbursed at 40% of true cost. This is not due to underinsured or inadequate coverage. I've enlisted a public adjuster, which should be sought at the front end of the claim. Agree, Janet Ruiz?
What I would say is it is really important to negotiate with your insurance company. And, excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold, but the insurance should pay for for your plumbing, you know, not having the details of the whole claim. I can't really say in your specific case, but you should be able to get the full amount to replace what you had. So it may depend on whether it was a burst pipe or if it was a maintenance issue, and those are the things that the insurance company would take into account when they look at your claim.
Okay, we've got seconds left here. I want you to give out your website again, if you would, Janet, and that's the same of Amy Bach. Go ahead, Janet Ruiz.
It is www.iii.org.
A lot of information there on Amy Bach for United policyholders.
So that's uphelp.org, uphelp.org.
And there is help on the way on both those websites. Thank you, Janet Ruiz. Thank you, Amy Bach. Thank you, our listeners. We're here with you Monday through Friday, 9 to 11, an hour repeated 10 to 11 in the evening, and you can continue this discussion online by going to kqed.org/forum. When we return, we're going to talk about Silicon Valley during the opening.
Bear left.
Funds for the production of Forum are provided by the members of KQED Public Radio and the Germanicos Foundation and the Generosity Foundation, and by Jan Schremm and Maria Minetti Schremm, founders of the Minetti Schremm Museum of Art at UC Davis, which preserves the legacy of renowned artists such as Wayne Thiebaud for future innovators by dedicating a third of one thing about the latest breaking news alert. Lower income
chains fell in the news of the Amazon Whole Foods deal.
To the meaning of one phrase, bona fide relationship.
That's why NPR News is making space for clear, concise journalism and memorable stories. Make some space for yourself and stand with the facts. Listen every day.
NPR, always on.
He's exclusive behind the scenes there. Country music's biggest night.
51st CMA Award Show on ABC.
Feature live performances from Luke Bryan,
Miranda Lambert,
Thomas Rudd,
and more.
live from Nashville on the highway tomorrow at 8, 7 Central.
CMA Awards Radio.
Sirius XM Channel 56. or 1-800-947-AUTO.
Prepare to bear left.
From WBUR Boston and NPR, I'm Tom Ashbrook, and this is On Point. Democrats still aren't over the 2016 primary race that pitted Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders. Former Democratic National Committee Chair Donna Brazile has penned a book saying the Clinton campaign basically took over the DNC as Hillary battled Bernie. Rigged primaries is the headline question. The book is out today, Election Day of all things. Up next On Point, the current DNC chair, Tom Perez, a Sanders champion, and more on Donna Brazile's bombshell. First, this news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The chairman of the House Armed Services Committee says the panel will launch its own investigation into the Air Force's failure to report the criminal record of the gunman in Sunday's Texas church shooting. Representative Mac Thornberry of Texas says the Air Force should not be allowed to self-police. The congressman also raised concerns that the failure to report domestic violence convictions like those of the gunman may be systematic. While the gunman had been convicted of assaulting his wife and young child and received a bad conduct discharge from the military, investigators believe a dispute with his in-laws prompted him to go to their church on Sunday and open fire. They were not there, but the gunman killed 26 people. Fred Milanowski, the special agent in charge of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, clarified the weapons linked to the gun.
In a half a mile, veer left onto I-95 toward New Jersey Turnpike.
It's a semi-automatic weapon. I want to clear that up because that's been reported a couple different ways in the media. The second thing is ATF agents have acquired shell casings from the scene. Those shell casings will be entered into ATF's national ballistic identification network, and that will help us determine if that rifle was used in any other shootings.
That update moments ago in Sutherland Springs, Texas. We turn now to South Korea, where President Trump has met with both U.S. and South Korean forces. More on this from NPR's Scott Horsley.
The base, known as Camp Humphreys, will ultimately house many of the 28,000 U.S. service members.
In a half a mile, veer left, then veer left.
Camp Humphreys is beyond the reach of North Korea's conventional artillery. South Korea paid most of the cost of the base. Trump was asked by a reporter from South Korea about the $11 billion price tag.
I know what it cost, and it's a lot of money. We actually spent some of that money, and as you know, that money was spent for the
Veer left.
South Korea, not to protect the United States.
Trump also boasted during his developer days he could have built the base for a lot less money. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Seoul.
Veer left and continue following I-95 south toward New Jersey Turnpike south.
Pressure on Iran. Details from NPR's Michelle Kellerman. The EU's foreign policy chief, Federica Mogherini, says she's making clear in her meetings with members of Congress that the Iran nuclear deal is working, and she's urging them not to pass legislation that would violate it.
And I got reassurances from their sides, different sides on the Hill, that this is exactly the spirit in which they're working to keep the United States compliant with the deal, and this is also our interest.
Congress has been reworking legislation that requires the president to certify the Iran nuclear deal, something Trump refused to do last month. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the State Department. You're listening to NPR News. Syria plans to sign on to the landmark Paris Climate Accord to limit global warming. It's been the only holdout among the 195 members of the United Nations. That is, unless President Trump follows through on his threat to withdraw the United States from the 2015 agreement. Trump, who has raised doubts that man-made gas emissions are driving global warming, claims the U.S. is shortchanged, and he wants the pact renegotiated. Other major powers say they're moving forward with or without the U.S. House Republicans are rolling back their plan to tax colleges with large endowments.
Prepare to their left.
WGBH in Boston has the latest.
As part of their tax overhaul, Republicans have proposed a 1.4% excise tax on hundreds of private colleges with endowments worth at least $100,000 per full-time student. College leaders objected, saying the tax would have dire consequences for at least 16 schools here in Massachusetts. On Monday, Republicans passed an amendment to the plan that would increase that threshold to $250,000 per student, lowering the number of schools that would have to pay the tax. Fewer than 70 colleges, including 9 here in Massachusetts, would still be affected. For NPR News, I'm Kurt Carapezza in Boston.
The head of a federal control board that oversees Puerto Rico's finances says the U.S. territory needs an unprecedented
In a half a mile, veer left onto I-80 west toward Garden State Parkway.
Committee that the island needs an infusion of emergency funds to restore electricity, water, and housing. The hurricane damage is estimated to be as high as $95 billion. This is NPR News.
Support for it.
Veer left.
The NPR Wine Club, offering wines from around the world with stories behind each one and bottles inspired by favorite NPR shows. Available to adults 21 years or older. Learn more at nprwineclub.org and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. I'm Tom Ashbrook. Each day, NPR brings you the best of public radio, like On Point. Listener support keeps On Point interacting with newsmakers, journalists, and you. At our website, onpointradio.org, you can make a pledge, browse our library of past shows, and continue the conversation online. Make your contribution today at onpointradio.org. And thanks. NPR, I'm Tom Asbrook, and this is On Point. Here it is, Election Day, an important day to get out and vote. For some Democrats, it's the presidential primary and caucus voting of 2016 that's still raising hackles. Former Democratic National Committee Chair Donna Brazile has written an explosive tell-all saying the Clinton campaign basically took over the DNC as Hillary battled Bernie. Rigged is the word getting all the attention. The book is out today. This hour on Point, Democrats weighing in on Donna Brazile's story and the party's way ahead. You can join us on air or online, where this conversation is always on. Was someone robbed here or not? Are you over it? We're at 800-423-8255. That's 800-423-TALK, or join us anytime at onpointradio.org or on Twitter and Facebook at onpointradio. Joining me first today from Washington is Philip Rucker, White House bureau chief for the Washington Post. Covered the 2016 presidential campaign. He was the only reporter, as far as we know, to read Donna Brazile's book, Hacks, the inside story of the break-ins and breakdowns that put Donald Trump in the White House, before it was published today. The story on Sunday was headlined, Brazile says she found no evidence the Democratic Party's primaries were rigged for Clinton. You can link to all this at our website, onpointradio.org. Philip Rucker, welcome to On Point.
Hi, glad to be here, Tom.
If Donna Brazile's saying she found no evidence of rigging, what's all the hoopla about?
Well, listen, what she did find is a joint fundraising agreement that was signed between the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee back in, I believe, August of 2015. And the agreement meant that in exchange for the Clinton campaign helping raise money for the DNC, which, remember, was in pretty dire straits financially at the time, that they would be able to exert some measure of control over some functions of the DNC, strategy, staffing, budget, things like that. That is not the same, however, as rigging the actual primaries. Those are elections that were controlled by the various states. There were also some caucuses that were run by the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders actually prevailed in most of those caucuses, whereas Hillary Clinton did perform better in those primary elections. So when Donna Brazile says in her Sunday interview on ABC that she had no evidence the primary was rigged, she means there's no evidence that the elections themselves were rigged.
So what was the heart of her complaint?
Her complaint is that the DNC showed favoritism, and in her view, unethical and unfair favoritism for Clinton. Well, at the beginning of the primary process, before the primaries took off, before Bernie Sanders really took off as a grassroots phenomenon. And she, posits that the structures of the party here in Washington were tilted in Clinton's favor, that the Clinton campaign was able to exercise some control over strategic direction of the party, but she's not claiming that any votes were rigged, that any particular primary election was stolen.
Philip, take us back to who Donna Brazile was and why and how she became DNC chair at the moment in time.
Yeah, so she's someone a lot of us are familiar with from television. She's a very prominent African-American strategist in the Democratic Party. She was campaign manager for Al Gore in 2000, but has been around Democratic politics for decades, and most recently as an on-air television cable news commentator. But she was also the vice chair of the Democratic National Committee, and in the summer of 2016, just on the eve of the convention in Philadelphia, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who had been the chair of the
Prepare to bear ride.
quit, given sort of the WikiLeaks scandal that was ongoing. And so Donna Brazile, as the vice chair, was elevated kind of overnight to become interim chair. She took over the party at that critical time and then led the party through the general election.
And how, you got this book, I don't know how you got it before it came out, but then she's also written about it in advance of it coming out, saying that she had promised Bernie Sanders that, she's written, this was for Politico, I would get to the bottom of whether Hillary Clinton's team had rigged the nomination process, as a cache email stolen by Russian hackers and posted online had suggested. Remind us of the timing of the emails.
In a half a mile, bear right, then bear right.
What was going on?
Yeah, so Tom, that article you're mentioning in Politico is actually an excerpt from a chapter of her book that's called Bernie, I Found the cancer. And in it, Donna Brazile describes this phone call to Bernie Sanders and
They're right.
when she took over the DNC. And the emails that she's referring to, I believe, are the emails that were hacked by the Russians in that illegal hack. This was an ongoing problem at the DNC for more than a year, really, and a trove of emails came out on the eve of the convention that frankly,
They're right.
only from Chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, but a number of the senior staffers on the campaign, or on the DNC rather, were playing
They're left.
Hillary Clinton during the primaries.
And can you detail that favoritism so people understand exactly what she's suggesting as Donna Brazile interpreted all that?
Well, it's little things. It can be as minor as figuring out what the debates.
They're left onto GS Parkway North.
It's a favoritism as well. And over the course of the campaign, an email actually came out showing that Donna Brazile, who had been working at CNN as a contributor, shared, one of the upcoming questions that was going to be asked at a CNN town hall debate with the Clinton campaign, and that was seen and interpreted as a sign of outright favoritism. Even by Donna Brazile. So there were just a number of instances where, emails that Debbie Wasserman Schultz sent and emails that her advisors and top staff sent that were really infuriating to Bernie Sanders supporters and created a pretty toxic environment at the beginning of the convention in Philadelphia.
So be more explicit about if she's saying, well, no, the primaries weren't rigged, but there was a cancer here. Describe exactly what she's calling the cancer.
The cancer is the joint fundraising agreement, and this is
Take exit 160 to the right, then bear left.
when the Clinton campaign went ahead and did form one, and it was an agreement with the DNC where the Clinton campaign would help raise money for the national party, and in exchange would have oversight and some element of control over a lot of
Exit right.
the strategy decisions to budget decisions to staffing decisions. At one point, the Clinton campaign recommended a slate of candidates to become the communications director for the DNC. It turns out, I believe, that the ultimate person who got that job was not from that slate of candidates, but this was an unusual amount of control for a candidate.
Bear left toward Bear Lawn.
Yet secured the nomination. When somebody becomes the nominee of their party, they effectively inherit the national party and can take over the DNC in this case. But Hillary Clinton was one of three candidates at the time.
In 600 feet, bear left onto Garden State Plaza Boulevard.
Control that Bernie Sanders and O'Malley did not have.
So it's funny because your story over the weekend says, Donna Brazile says no rigging, and yet rigging is the word from that excerpt that got published.
Follow the road for half a mile. Prepare to bear right.
Right, and I just want to be clear about that story over the weekend. When she says no rigging, she means very explicitly no rigging in the electoral process, that the actual vote was not rigged, that when you say Hillary Clinton won a primary, the South Carolina primary, that was not a rigged election. That's what she means by no rigging.
So there was, though, an extraordinary degree of control here, as you read it, as a reporter.
Turn right.
If you step back from saying, the same thing goes on with Mueller's investigation into the Russians, but if you step back from, okay, were the votes messed with? You might say no, but could it still be rigged? What's the difference between an extraordinary degree of control and a rigged Democratic primary?
Well, it looks bad, and it more than that, it shows the power of big money.
C.
Influence with the Democratic National Committee, which gave her an unfair advantage to a more grassroots candidate like Bernie Sanders, who did not have access to donors willing to write those enormous checks. And it's ironic because President Obama had such a people-powered campaign, but then this is the kind of party that he's handed over to his successor, and it was so easily controlled by the Clinton campaign. She was sort of designated
In 200 feet, turn left onto McKay Avenue.
Donna Brazil's account.
Turn left.
Just how much the party was sort of moving in lockstep to support her, even though there was this very powerful grassroots movement.
In 1/4 of a mile, bear right toward RT 17 Newark.
Last week, it was CNN's Jake Tapper asking Senator Elizabeth Warren, prominent progressive, if she believes the Democratic primary process was rigged in favor of Hillary Clinton in the 2016 primary.
Very quickly, Senator, do you agree with the notion that it was rigged?
Yes.
Yes, straight up from Senator Warren there. Here's George Stephanopoulos. He asked Donna Brazil on Monday if she agreed with Elizabeth Warren on the rigging.
Bear right.
She meant the word rigged, because what I said, George, as you well know, after I left this show back on July 24th, I said I would get to the bottom of everything. And that's what I did. And I called Senator Sanders and say, you know, I wanted to make sure there was no rigging of the process. I'm on the Rules and Bylaws Committee. I found no evidence.
In 1/4 of a mile, bear right onto RT 17 south toward Newark.
Was this memorandum that prevented the DNC from running its own operation.
So, Phil, what do you make of this then, Phil Berger? She's got her own credibility issues around those questions that were given to Hillary Clinton in advance of town hall debates. She's put a lot in this.
Bear right.
There's a big letter out from 100 or so Clinton staffers over the weekend saying, we don't recognize what she's describing here. Whose version of events is carrying the day?
It's a good question. And, you know, the book goes far beyond just this issue of the joint fundraising agreement and the so-called cancer that she uncovered. She really...
In 1/4 of a mile, bear right onto Rochelle Avenue.
...as a candidate and described the lack of enthusiasm she saw all around the country.
She called it anemic, talks about the odor of failure, as a campaign that was stiff and stupid messages.
That's right. We've not seen a tell-all this extraordinary in probably a decade or two in politics. This is unusual for the party chair to come out so harshly critical of the Clinton campaign.
We are going to be talking with the Democratic current DNC chair, Tom Perez, in this hour. We're supposed to be talking with Nina Turner here in a moment as well from the Sanders side of the woods here. Philip Rucker is with us, Washington bureau chief for the Washington Post. He read it first. Philip, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Tom.
Listeners, you can join us. Have you read Donna Brazil's description of how Hillary Clinton's campaign at the Democratic National Committee, under its thumb? Was that rigging? In hindsight, did the primaries look rigged to you, or is this just, rough politics? 800-423-8255, 800-423-TALK. I'm Tom Ashbrook. This is On Point. We'll be right back.
On the next Fresh Air, Pete Souza, who was the official White House photographer for President Obama. He took 1.9 million photos in 8 years, including the famous one in the Situation Room as Obama, Hillary Clinton, and the National Security Team tensely watched the raid on Osama bin Laden. Souza has a book of photos from the Obama years. Join us today at 4 p.m. East, 1 West on NPR Now.
Rock legend Billy Joel returns to the Beatles channel.
There are places I remember
to take you on a one-of-a-kind guided tour through the Beatles albums of 1966.
It was a fun adventure to go where they went.
Billy Joel takes control of the Beatles channel.
It touched a lot of people. It was a very exciting time.
Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern, and again at 5 Pacific.
Sirius XM Channel 18 and streaming on the Sirius XM app.
Support for On Point comes from Carbonite, offering secure data protection solutions for growing businesses, including automatic backup for servers and computers, high availability and disaster recovery solutions, and automated data migration. Learn more at Carbonite.com. And Linguistica 360 with News in Slow Spanish, News in Slow French, and News in Slow Italian programs. Weekly language learning shows with discussion of current events. You will reach your next destination in 500 feet. Your next destination is on the left.
I'm Tom Ashbrook. This is On Point. We're talking this hour about the Democrats and former DNC chair Donna Brazil raising.
You've reached your next destination.
2016 primaries, Hillary Clinton versus Bernie Sanders. You can join us this hour. Are you following this? Does rigging look like the right word to you? Was Clinton's influence inevitable, given her war chest and the DNC's empty coffers? Or was this something different? We're at 800-423-8255. That's 800-423-TALK. Nina Turner joins us in just a moment. Republicans have been eager and ready to make hay on this, including the president. Here he was on Friday talking with reporters as he was about to leave on his trip to Asia.
You want to look at
Turn right.
And you want to look at the new book that was just put out by Donna Brazile, where she basically bought the DNC and she stole the election from Bernie. So that's what you want to take a look at.
And Paul Ryan on Fox News piling on Sunday.
I've never seen anything like that. I mean, we all said that the Clintons thought they lived above the rules, but this takes the cake. I mean, this is pretty amazing. For them to basically be running the DNC in a primary, to see such a deck stacked is really pretty jaw-dropping to me. No wonder the Democrats are ticked off. I would be too. It's amazing to me how the Clintons just lived above the law or above the rules in this thing.
We're going to talk with the current DNC chair, Tom Perez, in just a moment. Elizabeth Warren, was it rigged? She said yes to Jake Tapper. But here was how she elaborated on that. And the Democratic Party and the chair now, Tom Perez, going forward.
He's being tested now. This is a test for Tom Perez. And either he's going to succeed by bringing Bernie Sanders and Bernie Sanders representatives into this process, and they're going to say it's fair, it works, we all believe it, or he's going to fail. And I very much hope he succeeds.
And Donna Brazile, she's had a lot of criticism here after this book as well. Talking to George Stephanopoulos about that, she says, I've got my story to tell.
George, for those who are telling me to shut up, they told Hillary that a couple of months ago. You know what I tell them? Go to hell. Good. I'm going to tell my story.
We're going to Nina Turner right now from Cleveland, Ohio, president of Our Revolution. That's a group founded by Bernie Sanders.
Follow the arrow on the display. When leaving, turn left.
She was a frequent surrogate for Sanders during his campaign, quite a fiery one, former Ohio State Senator. Nina Turner, welcome back to On Point. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks, Tom. Glad to join you.
What do you make of the Donna Brazile revelations? And is this, by your lights, was this a rigged primary?
I mean, Donna Brazile.
Netflix and Amazon. A lot, because they have substantially lower costs.
on the table, I would say to the regulators, well, Netflix and Amazon are giving us honest on that front. They're giving competition go.
Sally Welsh, MSNBC anchor and economics correspondent. Alec, thanks as always. This is here. Brexit is the big economic issue in the UK. Predictions of financial doom and gloom abound.
In 900 feet, they're right toward Paramus Park.
Opinion polls, and it always spits out a similar result, about 50-50.
I'm Colin Rizzo. Efforts to roll back the hands of economic time. Thanks, Colin, on Marketplace. Today, 6 p.m. East, 3 West on NPR Now. I'm Jack Leviar's
Follow the road for 11 miles.
The suspected Texas church shooter's cell phone. Special Agent Christopher Cohn says the phone has been flown to an FBI lab for analysis. Texas public safety officials say 10 people remain hospitalized in critical condition. A disciplinary panel has found a Baltimore police van driver not guilty on all charges related to the death of a black man in police custody. Freddie Gray died in 2015 after suffering a spinal injury while in a police van being driven by a Caesar Grizzly. But a sales officer Gibson did not violate any department policies. A counterterrorism investigation in Europe has made 10 arrests of people accused of using social media networks to prepare a possible terrorist attack. The operations took place in France and Switzerland as part of a Swiss investigation into the self-proclaimed Islamic State group. You're listening to the facts that affect your life. It's at Shots, a blog on health. Shots is at NPR.org.
People who live there are actually homeless right now, but Antigua was actually not that affected the airport. Port is open for business. Many of the hotels are getting ready to reopen again for the season. So Antigua is actually anticipating a bigger tourism season this year because they're going to be welcoming travelers from the other places, people who had their plans interrupted.
And you're saying, in fact, that Antigua, a lot of the cruise itineraries had to change, and Antigua is one of the places where many ships will be heading. They may have a record-breaking year for cruise.
Exactly, and and I should actually point out, I didn't mention this earlier, the U.S. Virgin Islands were also very affected. St. John was greatly impacted, but St. Croix wasn't hit as hard, and so you've got an iconic property like the Buccaneer. They're actually going to be open and welcoming visitors, but I should also point out that a lot of these properties are open and accepting, and they're having people stay there for the recovery efforts, so workers who are there as part of the rebuilding process. So anybody who's thinking of traveling to one of the islands that is affected, the resorts aren't open for business as usual, shall we say.
No, and just finishing the thought on Antigua and Barbuda. Barbuda is, the star had been rising. It's very small. And in fact, Robert De Niro and James Patrick, who was the Australian businessman, were taking a former K-Club resort and transforming it into the Paradise Down Nobu resort when the hurricane hit. So
I know, they're taking a step back, and actually there was a small boutique property that opened there just a few years ago that Travel Leisure put on its hit list called Barbuda Belle. It was a lovely, boutique property with bungalows along the beach. Obviously they were impacted, but you've got islands like the Cayman Islands. They weren't affected at all, and there was a new property that opened there called the Kimpton Sea Fire. It opened last year, and so we're seeing that a lot of the islands that were hurt, people are going to start traveling elsewhere in the region.
Keep talking about islands that might have had some damage, but maybe not devastation. Turks and Caicos.
Yeah, Turks is an interesting example. So the main island, Providenciales, Grace Bay, is long been a hub for tourism. There are many properties that line that beautiful stretch of beach, and they were able to get back on their feet relatively quickly, clean up the beaches, and so that Provo is open for business. But also Grand Turk, which is the hub really for the cruise business, that island, they're still working on recovering. St. Bart's is another example too.
Watch out! Vehicle stops on shoulder ahead.
Some of the shops and restaurants are slowly opening. Some of the more boutique, smaller properties, they're planning to open, I'd say in March, April, start to welcome tourists. But some of the bigger places like the iconic Eden Rock Hotel, which was, it literally sat on a rock so close to the ocean, it's going to take a little bit of time before that reopens. But I should say they also have villas that are part of the hotel, and they are planning to open relatively soon.
So you mentioned that they still want people to come to some of these areas to maybe even volunteer. How do you know what's safe?
The key thing is to go to the Caribbean Tourism Organization's websites, to go to the Puerto Rico tourism website as well, and they've been really diligent about keeping people updated as to what is and what isn't open. I should also point out an interesting way to potentially visit Puerto Rico and help. I've been working on a story with the company called The Moorings. They do charter yacht sailings, and so the harbor is open, and they're going to be welcoming cruise ships back in, it's looking like December, and The Moorings is anticipating that they're going to be able to start doing their charter sales again in December. So, you can sail around the islands, maybe potentially visit Culebra and Vieques, but I don't want to, minimize the situation on the ground at all. I mean, it's about bringing electricity back to the locals and delivering fresh water. That is the first order of business.
Well, but as you're saying, if the hotels aren't up, if you're staying on a charter boat, you can be staying there and then potentially go on shore and buy something.
Of course, and visit restaurants. Sometimes those are the first things to reopen, and that's the most important thing to realize, is that when you're going and visiting, just be aware that it's not going to be the vacation perhaps that you had in mind last year, but it is important to still spend your dollars there.
Yeah. Jackie, with your expertise, what would you say is the best place that people should go? And I hate to pick one, out of all your Caribbean island children, but what is the best place where, they may not have heard of it? I mean, an island you can shine a light on that maybe somebody might check out for the first time.
Barbados doesn't get as many American visitors. They get more Brits, to be honest, and the beaches are beautiful. The food is fantastic. I mean, nothing is unknown at this point, but I feel like because it's traditionally attracted Brits, Americans maybe just didn't know about it quite as much.
Okay, Barbados.
Yeah.
Jackie, thanks so much.
Thank you.
That's Jackie Gifford of Travel and Leisure Magazine. If you weren't taking notes, we'll have links at hereanow.org. Well, from the Caribbean, we go to the
farm fields of Arizona, where farmers are looking for innovative ways to meet increasing demand for food, and sometimes that innovation looks a lot like Silicon Valley high tech. Izzy Kuhn from member station KJZZ visits a giant greenhouse in rural Arizona that's using artificial intelligence to better grow tomatoes.
Walking into tomato company Nature Sweet's greenhouse is like walking into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. The long hall between the grow houses bustles with workers moving tomatoes and shouting directions.
You know the first harvest? So this is the first harvest.
The general manager, Gustavo Vera, shows me rows of plants heavy with green-brown tomatoes. He says the 8-week process to get them to this point is done very carefully.
Growing tomatoes is hard. So the grower needs to balance out several conditions at the same time.
Conditions like humidity, temperature, irrigation, pest control, the list goes on. We're in one of the 16 greenhouses here where millions of tomatoes are grown to be sent to grocery stores nationwide. Nature Sweet is trying out a technology you may not expect to see in the rural Southwest, artificial intelligence.
This is going to revolutionize the industry, I believe, because what was an art now has a data backup.
Newly installed cameras line the greenhouses and take continuous photos of the crops, which then become data back at the main office. There, Veta shows me a dashboard on his computer, compiling and tracking the data coming from the growers.
And this tells us, okay, of out of the houses that you have, which ones do have control the operations.
He points to different charts and numbers that are constantly changing. An overhead shot shows not plants, but green dots in a row. He clicks on the data layer and a few turn red, meaning those plants have pests. Exact pinpoints show growers where to find the problem crops. But this artificial intelligence is not the kind that can take over the world, says agriculture technology specialist Robin Lawson.
Artificial intelligence has such this negative connotation. I immediately think of all of those sci-fi movies from Hollywood, and that's not what's happening.
She says it's large-scale data analytics that farmers are using nowadays as labor becomes more limited and expensive. In the past decade, robot sensors, aerial imagery, and hundreds of apps have helped farmers manage their fields. Lawson says cutting-edge technology
Compared to their left,
has gone hand in hand, but now it's developing at a rapid pace.
And it's almost oversaturated data. There's some times where growers are like, this is too much, I don't even know how to put this together to make a decision.
That's not in 1/4 of a mile, rear left, onto I-287 north toward New York Thruway.
Show you on this one.
Irrigation technologist Juan Mosqueda inputs data about how fast the
Rear left.
picks on an app on his phone. It's an upgrade from the pen and paper he used to use.
We won't have to carry any papers anymore. All the information is on the same place. It gives us some nice graphs when we go to it.
And as farming technology keeps getting smarter, tech specialist
Watch
Jonathan
out,
Lawson says
roadworks
there may be a
reported on the
place
road
where
ahead.
the plant itself with a sensor
In half a mile, rear left, onto I-87 north toward New York State Thruway North.
In my lifetime, I think we'll start to see that.
It might be a while before that happens, but there's no doubt the future of farming is going digital. For Here and Now, I'm Casey Kuhn.
Now we're over the line, rear left.
Tomato. Everything here.
By law, the president has to recertify the nuclear deal every 90 days.
1 minute after noon. Amazon says it is also reviewing its projects with the Weinstein Company. 1 minute after 5 in the evening.
Google CEO compared to their left. It can be a powerful equalizer.
1 minute after 11 at night. Fire officials here say the situation remains dangerous, fluid, and unpredictable. What's happening? What's known? What's next? 1 minute after the hour. Every hour, every day. From NPR News.
In the next fresh air, Pete Souza, who was the official White House photographer for President Obama. He took 1.9 million photos in 8 years, including the famous one in the Situation Room as Obama, Hillary Clinton, and the National Security Team tensely watched the raid on Osama bin Laden. Souza has a book of photos from the Obama years. Join us. Today at 4 p.m. East, 1 West on NPR. In a half a mile, rear left, and continue following I-87 north toward New York State Thruway North. Boston and Linguistica 360 with news in slow Spanish, news in slow French, and news in slow German programs. Weekly language learning show. Rear left. current events, or at newsinslow.com. News in Slow, language learning through current events. And MathWorks, creators of MATLAB and Simulink software for technical computing and model-based design. MathWorks, accelerating the pace of discovery in engineering and science. Learn more at mathworks.com.
This is Here and Now. Tomorrow night, the country music community comes together for the CMA Awards, just a month or so after the mass shooting at Country Music Festival in Las Vegas. Last week, the Country Music Association said reporters at the CMAs should avoid questions about guns or politics or risk losing their credentials. The association has since reversed that decision. We're joined now by Don Cusick, professor of music business at Belmont University in Nashville. And Don, give us a sense of how big an issue guns are in country music right now after Las Vegas. Are people talking about them, or is this kind of a taboo subject?
Taboo subject. And, country, the music is country, and that means rural. And so there's a long tradition of hunting, fishing, and shooting guns. And of course, basically a conservative group, they're going to believe in guns. Now, in terms of talking about it, this community's been hit pretty hard. The trauma, the fears are all there. So they may have gone and bought some guns, but they're not really talking about guns or gun issues.
Why do you think that the Country Music Association initially said that it didn't want any questions to be asked about guns or politics at the CMA Awards?
I think it was a combination of good intentions. There's a lot of trauma here, a lot of mental health issues with artists and crew members and all of that. And then wanting a warm and fuzzy show with, you don't mess with the goose laying the golden egg. So we wanted to be as happy and positive as possible.
Well, what does he tell you that Brad Paisley was the one? He's co-hosting the awards with Carrie Underwood. He tweeted out on Friday morning, "I'm sure the CMA will do the right thing and rescind these ridiculous and unfair press guidelines," and then they did.
Brad Paisley is a former student of mine, and I know he is a bright guy, and I know how he operates. It was a brilliant move. He didn't make any demands. He just chided them.
Do you think that they were justified in their fear that having an event that's not warm and fuzzy, as you say, would be a problem for sales?
I don't know about sales, but the artists are feeling very vulnerable now. They're vulnerable because they stand up on a stage with a spotlight in their eyes that you can't see anything beyond that spotlight, and they're vulnerable in their careers because if you remember the Dixie Chicks?
Yeah, Bruce W. Bush.
Yeah, if they say something that kind of cuts against their core audience, then the career might be over. And finally, they're vulnerable because no matter what they say or do, nothing's going to happen. It can only be a negative.
What's the connection between country artists and the NRA?
Well, the NRA has a website called NRA Country, and it's a brilliant move by the NRA because here you have a controversial organization, and country music has a very positive image, and so they're going to try and link the two. And by and large, the NRA's membership and the country music audience and country music community and artists overall fits to a large extent with that group. At the same time, most of the NRA members believe there should be some common sense rules about gun ownership, and certainly I would have to say country artists would feel the same way.
Beyond guns, the CMA also said initially, and again they changed their mind on this, but that they wouldn't allow questions about politics. Makes me wonder how President Trump is seen in the country community at this point.
It's hard to talk about Trump down here because you've got a lot of people that are gung-ho for him. Not just in the country music community, but in Tennessee, which is a very red state.
Police reported ahead.
And at the same time, sometimes he embarrasses them a bit with his tweets. But I think, you got a state that 2/3, I believe, or something like 60%, voted for Trump. And the tendency is to continue to support it.
So we shouldn't expect at the Country Music Association Awards to see anything like we did at the Emmys or the Oscars?
No, I don't think you're going to find that.
As a country music historian, have you seen a moment like this before where the news, where politics intersects so directly
being married, free love, smoking that, and wearing those illegal smiles, and you have Merle Haggard come out with Okie from Muskogee. In the anti-Vietnam demonstrations, you have some very pro-Army, very patriotic songs. Yeah, and of course, Alan Jackson, Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning? Which is probably the greatest song about the 9/11 event that came out. So, country has been for a long time commenting on the news or social events, but from the right side, right as a right political side.
That's Don Cusick, who is a professor at Belmont University, who focuses on music history and the music business. Don, thanks so much as always.
Thank you, Jeremy. Great to be on.
Production of NPR and WBUR in association with the BBC World Service. I'm Jeremy Hobson, along with Robin Young. It's Here and Now.
Funding for Here and Now comes from Landmark College, serving students who learn differently with faculty specializing in LD support, associate and bachelor's degrees, transitional bridge semesters, and summer programs for college and high school students. More at ldbridge.org.
I'm Robin Young. What happened Election Day? What's been the latest reaction to the horrific church shooting in Texas? President Trump travels to Asia to promote economic ties and pressure the North Korean leadership. And the GOP continues its push for a big tax cut. There is plenty to talk about with our Democratic and Republican strategists next time here and now.
Shots, NPR's health blog. Find shots at npr.org.
Support for NPR comes from Epson with EcoTech, an all-in-one cartridge-free printer with a refillable ink tank. Built-in wireless allows for printing from tablets and smartphones, whether in the room or across the world. Learn more at epson.com/ecotech. From Moscow to Washington, NPR keeps you informed at home and around the world. NPR, always on. I'm Terry Gross with Fresh Air. Today, Pete Souza, the chief official White House photographer for President Obama. Souza took nearly 2 million photos in 8 years. He had top security clearance and was with Obama at most meetings and major events. He took the famous photo of Obama, Hillary Clinton, and the national security team in the Situation Room watching the Bin Laden raid.
I probably could have improved 12 inches at the most because it was just so jam-packed in that room.
Since leaving the White House, Souza has become famous for responding to the comments and actions of President Trump by posting photos on Instagram of how Obama handled similar situations, or, as it's often described, trolling Trump and throwing shade.
Somebody wrote a story about throwing shade. I actually had to look that up because I really
And jazz critic Kevin Whitehead remembers Newhall Richard Abrams, who died last week. First news. Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Strong reaction today on Capitol Hill to the U.S. Air Force's failure to notify the FBI about its conviction of the gunman who murdered 26 people in Texas on Sunday. NPR's David Walden reports the Air Force faced scathing criticism from the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee.
Matt Thornberry is the Texas Republican who chairs the House Armed Services panel. In a statement, he called the Air Force's omission in reporting mass killer Devin Kelly's criminal record, quote, appalling. Had that record been sent to the FBI, Kelly likely would have been prevented from making recent gun purchases. Thornberry acknowledged the Air Force has begun an internal investigation, said he did not believe it should be left to self-police. He also expressed concern that the failure to properly report domestic violence convictions may be what he called a systemic issue in the Air
Police Department that Devin Kelly escaped and attempted to leave the state on a Greyhound bus, but he was picked up. According to the police incident report, that employee also said Kelly had already been caught sneaking firearms on Albany Air Force Base and was attempting to carry out death threats against his military chain of command. The weapons allegation has not been confirmed by officials at the base. In other news, a Baltimore police officer has been cleared of all 21 administrative charges in connection with the death of a young black man in April.
In a half a mile, bear left and continue following I-87 north.
He was driving a van in which Freddie Gray was mortally injured after he was arrested. The panel determined Goodson did not violate any department policies.
Bear left.
In Congress, House tax writers are considering a sweeping GOP bill that Republican leaders hope to pass out of the chamber before Thanksgiving. NPR's Kelsey Snell reports House Republicans are rejecting criticism that their legislation could raise taxes for some families.
The committee aims to approve the overhaul later this week, paving the way for a full House vote as early as next week. Republicans say the average household with 2 children would see their taxes cut by more than $1,100. House Speaker Paul Ryan says those tax breaks would be particularly meaningful for people living paycheck to paycheck.
We know this is the kind of relief that people need. The Joint Tax Committee says it's a tax cut for everybody across the board. But most importantly, we know it levels the playing field for American job creators so they stay here.
But Democrats and some Republicans worry that families could wind up paying more when some elements like a $300 credit for parents expire after 5 years. Kelsey Snell, NPR News, the Capitol.
This is NPR News. Voters in New Jersey and Virginia are selecting new governors today. Could turn into a referendum on President Trump's leadership so far. NPR's Braxton Booker reports on how the race in Virginia is playing out.
The path to victory in Virginia looks like this. For the Democrat, Ralph Northam, he's got to win big in the ethnically diverse population centers, particularly in the northern Virginia counties just outside of Washington, D.C., in Richmond, and in the Virginia Beach area. For the Republican Ed Gillespie, he's got to pick off moderates and independents in those big population areas and have good turnout in the whiter south side and rural southwestern parts of the state.
NPR's Braxton Booker reporting. We turn now to Saudi Arabia, which has forced the closure of most land, air, and sea routes into Yemen after rebels there fired a missile that reached the capital, Riyadh. NPR's Ruth Sherlock says aid agencies are struggling to get urgently needed supplies into the country.
The United Nations has called for Saudi Arabia to open an aid lifeline to bring imports of food and medicine into the country. Yemen is already facing a humanitarian crisis, with many unable to get food or even have the money to buy it. Famine is a real threat. The United Nations and Doctors Without Borders say their aid flights have been grounded. If the blockade remains, they warn, the situation will get much worse. The coalition led by Saudi Arabia is fighting rebels, some of whom are backed by Iran, and have occupied Yemen's capital, Sana'a. Saudi Arabia says the closure is designed to stem the flow of weapons into Yemen, which it says are coming from Iran.
That's NPR's Ruth Sherlock. This is NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Pajamagram Company, offering 29 matching holiday pajamas for the whole family, including cats and dogs, and with Charlie Brown and the Night Before Christmas themes, in knits, fleece, and flannel. More at pajamagram.com. A minute after 5 in the morning.
Flake says the current Republican Party has left behind its original values.
1 minute after noon.
Bandera said the threat from North Korea had grown to what he called an unprecedented level.
1 minute after 5 in the evening.
Friday, the Spanish Senate is expected to vote in favor of triggering Article 155.
1 minute after 11 at night.
The refugee resettlement program in the U.S. has been largely on hold since June.
What's happening? What's known? What's next? 1 minute after the hour. Every hour, every day. From NPR News.
This is Fresh Air. I'm Terry Gross. During President Obama's 8 years in the White House, Pete Souza took nearly 2 million photos of him. Souza was Obama's chief White House photographer, but he actually started photographing Obama after Obama was elected to the U.S. Senate, and Souza was the Washington photographer for the Chicago Tribune. Souza shadowed Obama during his first year in the Senate, and then did a book of photos and texts called The Rise of Barack Obama. Now Souza has a new book, collecting White House photos and telling the stories behind them. It's called Obama, An Intimate Portrait. The pictures range
range from the famous photo of Obama, Hillary Clinton, and the national security team in the Situation Room watching the bin Laden raid play out, to a photo of the Obama's dog Bo climbing the stairs alone into Air Force One. Since Trump became president, Sousa has become famous for responding to things Trump says and does by posting photos on Instagram showing how Obama handled similar situations. Pete Sousa, welcome to Fresh Air. So I have to say, President Obama writes the intro for your book, and he says over the course of 8 years in the White House, he probably spent more time with you than with anybody other than his family. Now, is that introduction hyperbole, or is that really true?
No, I think it's really true, and I think he's talking about in my presence. I was there all the time. I wasn't talking to him all the time, but I was always in every meeting and pretty much every situation that he had as president. So it's probably pretty true.
Were you trying to be invisible much at that time?
Yes. My goal was to document what was taking place, accurately capture the mood and emotion of the moment, and not change what was taking place. And by using what I call a small footprint, meaning not using a noisy camera, not using flash, moving around gingerly. I'm not sure if invisible is the right word, but I was certainly trying to be a piece of the woodwork.
So what were the ground rules that you established for yourself and that the White House established for you?
There really weren't any ground rules. It was a brief conversation at the start where Robert Gibbs, as his emissary, if you will, when he called to offer me the job on behalf of the president-elect, I said, I'm all in on this, but you have to be all in. I need to have access to everything. And the immediate response was, President-elect gets it. And that was basically our ground rules, is access to everything.
So let me ask you about one of your most famous photos. This is the photo of President Obama, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and the National Security Team on May 2nd, 2011, watching a screen of I'm not sure what during the mission to take out bin Laden. And Hillary's hand is over her mouth. Everybody just looks incredibly tense and focused. What was happening in that moment? What were they looking at?
They were monitoring in real time the mission as it was unfolding. We were in that little conference room within the Situation Room for about 40 minutes, I think it was. And during that entire time, the mission was taking place in Pakistan. And they were just monitoring it in real time. You know, it's the thing that strikes me about that photograph now is you have the most powerful people in the federal government. You've got the president, vice president, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, secretary of state, secretary of defense, and on and on and on. And they were essentially helpless. They had made their decision in the days and weeks before to launch this raid. And now it's up to those guys on the ground. And there's nothing they could do to affect the outcome, which I think helps depict why their faces are so anxious and intense. To just essentially watch as this happens right before their eyes.
So here's this, really important mission that they're watching. As you say, at this point, they're out of control. There's nothing they can do. Where were you taking their photo?
So the Situation Room is actually comprised of 3 conference rooms. The president usually holds his meetings in the big conference room. The communications link that had been set up in Pakistan and Afghanistan was set up in this little tiny conference room, which was across the hall from the main room. And they were worried that if they switched that link to the big conference room, they might lose the signal. So instead, everybody just kind of piled into that little conference room, and it just happened really fast.
Watch out,
and the Brigadier General that you see seated at the head of the table when he saw the President of the United States walk in, he stood up to give him that chair. And President Obama looked at him and said, no, you're running the show, because he was kind of the link to the folks in Afghanistan, Bill McRaven. The president said, you stay there, I'm just going to pull up this little chair and sit next to you. So that's why the president's sitting where he is. And I had to make a decision when I first came in that room with this group. I had to pick one side, because it was so tight in there that I couldn't really, once I picked the spot, I couldn't really move. I had to basically go left or right. I went left. Just took a guess that would be a good spot to be. And throughout that 40 minutes, I probably could only move 12 inches at the most, because it was just so jam-packed in that room. There's actually other people in the room that you don't see because they're like standing literally right next to me.
And it must have been on your mind to like not get in the way, to not interfere in any way in this really tense, important, dramatic moment.
Absolutely. I was using a very quiet shutter, so when I took a picture, it wasn't loud at all. There wasn't a lot, usually in a situation of a meeting, there's lots of conversation, and it's easy to mask the sound of the camera. But in this particular 40 minutes, there was not a lot of conversation at all taking place. So I was being very quiet as best I could. And in those 40 minutes, I think I took about 95 or 100 pictures, which is not really a lot, one every 30 seconds or so.
Okay, so getting back to that moment during the Bin Laden raid, you say after they got confirmation that he was taken out, you say there was no cheering, no fist bumping. Why did you think it was important to note that?
Bin Laden was someone who had escaped the grasp of our military for 10 years. He was responsible for the biggest terrorist attack in our country. And I guess I was surprised that at the very end of this mission, when they knew they had him, it was somewhat anticlimactic that this had happened, and there was, I think, happiness. The president reached out and shook hands with a couple of the people in the room, but there was no, it was just so quiet afterwards that I just thought, I was surprised, to be honest with you.
So here you have this like ultra secret mission. Everybody's in part of the Situation Room, and you're the photographer and you're there. What kind of security clearance did you have, and what kind of access did you have to all kinds of secrets?
I had a top security clearance, which enabled me to go into all these meetings. But I have to say that most of the top secret material is on paper, and I was not privy to paperwork. I didn't get memos and things like that. And when you're a photographer in the room in these kinds of situations, you do hear conversations, but you got so many things to worry about technically with the camera, and then hoping to capture the moment at just the right time, composition. You can get the sense of the conversation and the mood and the emotion, but like I couldn't tell you, I couldn't repeat verbatim conversations that took place, because I, quite frankly, wasn't necessarily listening to all the words, just trying to get the essence of what was taking place.
So you have a photograph of President Obama getting the news that 26 people were shot at the Sandy Hook Elementary School, that 20 of them were first graders. Obama's leaning against the couch, head down, his arms crossed, his eyes closed, as he gets the news from his Homeland Security Advisor, John Brennan. Put us in that moment in your shoes. What's it like taking pictures at really such an awful moment? And I imagine there's times when President Obama may have wanted to get news like that without being observed.
Let me set the scene for you even just a little bit more. This is 4 weeks after he had just been reelected to the presidency for his second term. It's the middle of December. The White House takes on this almost glorious appearance with decorations and Christmas trees, and there's a big Christmas party every night with 500 people on the state floor that the president does a drop-by at. So that was the mood of the White House when this awful thing happened. And we started to get the news. There's a little TV right outside the Oval Office, and we started to get the news that there had been this shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School. And John walked in, and I followed him in, and was telling the president that, yes, in fact, 26 people had been killed, including 20 first graders. And I realize the significance of this moment. It's very emotional, but I'm also worried about my composition, framing. So all these things are going through my head as this, very difficult conversation is taking place. And I think I always tell people that in this moment, he's not reacting as the President of the United States. See the body language that you described. He's reacting as a fellow parent. And just try to imagine that you send your 6-year-old kid off to school. We consider those safety zones. And you've just learned that you're never going to see that 6-year-old again because some crazy guy shot them to death.
Police reported ahead.
This week, on Sunday, people were shocked. People were shot to death at a church in Sutherland Springs, Texas. And some children were shot at the church. After that shooting, you tweeted, "Dear Congress, you are the people's representatives. We want gun control. Do something useful." So it seems like in some ways, like your role has changed from the documentarian to be able to speak your mind about things that you feel deeply about, especially after having witnessed President Obama learning the news about Sandy Hook.
I am now a private citizen, and I think I should be free to express my views. I saw too many of these things happen, not personally, but the effect that these mass shootings have on families. And we need to do something about this.
Well, I imagine you went with President Obama each time he went to a memorial service or just send private condolences to any of the parents or family members of people who were shot to death in these mass shootings. So that you were probably by your side for most of that, right?
I was.
And I guess what I'm saying is you probably witnessed a lot of grief.
I had to document too many of these instances where President Obama had to play the consoler-in-chief. And play is probably the wrong word to use. But he would go to Aurora and Charleston and Newtown after these shootings and hug these families and look at pictures that the families had of their loved one that had been killed. I had to do that too many times. And he had to do that too many times. We need to do something about this. I really feel strongly about that.
If you're just joining us, my guest is Pete Souza. He was the chief official White House photographer during all 8 years of President Obama's presidency. Now he has a new collection of his photographs called Obama, an Intimate Portrait. We're going to take a short break here, and then we'll be right back. This is Fresh Air.
It's going to be a long fucking day when I drive to San Antonio. This is just Albany, but I've been stuck in an Apple store all day, so you can understand why.
This is Fresh Air, and if you're just joining us, my guest is Pete Souza. He was the chief official White House photographer during the Obama presidency, all 8 years. Now he has a new book collecting some of his photos called Obama, an Intimate Portrait. Whenever you're most famous shots is of President Obama bending down so that a young African-American boy could touch the president's hair. Would you describe who that boy was and what the occasion was of this photograph? Like, set the scene for us.
There was this gentleman that worked with the national security team by the name of Carlton in Philadelphia. He was a non-political worker, and he had actually worked, I believe, 3 years during the Bush administration. He carried over for the first 6 months of the Obama administration, and as a courtesy, the president would often invite departing staff to bring their family into the Oval Office to have a family picture taken in front of the desk. So just before this picture that you described was taken, I had made a picture of the family standing in front of the desk. And before the family left, the mom said, "Jacob," that's the little boy's name, "Jacob has a question for you, Mr. President." And Jacob, in his shy voice, was like, "My friends tell me that my hair is just like yours." And at that moment, President Obama bent over, and Jacob touched his head. The president said, "Go ahead and touch it." And I snapped that one picture. I mean, I have one picture of this brief moment. And it kind of took on somewhat of, an iconic status in years to follow. And I think what people see in that picture, I guess what I see in that picture is two things. One, here's this African-American kid who's touching the head of the President of the United States who looks like him. And I think a lot of young African-American kids probably could identify with that moment. But it also says something about President Obama that at the behest of this innocent question from this kid, that he was fine bending over to let this kid touch his head.
There's so many great photos that you took of President Obama holding hands with Michelle, or kissing her, or hugging her, and the president playing with Sasha and Malia in the snow in the White House. There's one where it's like Sasha's hiding behind a couch. I think it's in the Oval Office. While the president's at his desk. So I know you selected these photos from over 1 million photos, but is that representative of what happened? I mean, was he able to spend a lot of time with his family? I don't know how presidents spend any time with their family.
I think it was important to him, especially when the girls were young, to make sure he was home for dinner every night. And even if there was something going on that called for his attention,
some fries and
he would still try to go home for dinner at 6:30. And if need be, come back to the Oval Office or the Situation Room after dinner and resume discussion. So I think family for him was extremely important. There's a picture in the book right in the midst of the BP oil spill, which, if you remember, went on for weeks. And he had this meeting in the Oval Office about trying to figure out how to get them to stop this leak. And as he finished up the meeting and he was walking back to the president's desk, he saw Malia out on the swing set, which was right outside the Oval Office. And he walked outside and sat on the swing next to her and spent just 5 minutes having a conversation with Malia about what was on Malia's mind. And it was only 5 minutes, but there was no BlackBerry in his hand, there was no AIDS in close proximity. He was all in for those 5 minutes with his daughter. And I saw that again and again, and I tried to convey that part of his life in this book. The family coming in throughout the 8 years and how much they meant to him.
In your acknowledgments, you write, "Thanks to Malia and Sasha, I am so proud of how you always conducted yourself in the public eye." You watched those two girls grow up. I mean, 8 years is a long time in a child's life.
It is. first photographed them when they were 3 and 6. So when he was senator in 2005, and I was working for the Chicago Tribune, I photographed them on his first day in the Senate. And as I said, I think Sasha was 3 and Malia was 6. And now, towards the end of I think that last year, I think they were both taller than me. So I did watch them grow up.
My guest is Pete Souza, who is President Obama's chief official White House photographer. Souza's new book of photos and text is called Obama: An Intimate Portrait. After a break, we'll talk about how Souza has been responding to President Trump's actions and comments by posting on Instagram photos of how Obama handled similar situations. And jazz critic Kevin Whitehead will remember composer and pianist Muhal Richard Abrams, who died last week. I'm Terry Gross, and this is Fresh Air.
Supports WHYY's Fresh Air and its commitment to sharing ideas and encouraging meaningful conversation. Support for NPR comes from this station and from Home Instead Senior Care, with a range of in-home senior care services to keep senior loved ones at home, providing help with bathing, medication reminders, and Alzheimer's and dementia care at homeinstead.com/NPR. And from 20th Century Fox, presenting Murder on the Orient Express from director Kenneth Branagh, a mystery with a twist where everyone is a suspect, in theaters Friday.
NPR's Up First podcast is the news you need to start your day. The biggest stories and ideas from politics and pop culture in 10 minutes. Hosted by Rachel Martin, David Green, and Steve Esky, with reporting analysis from NPR News. Available weekdays by 6 a.m. East, 4 West. Subscribe to the Up First podcast at npr.org or wherever you get your podcasts.
XM's The Highway is now CMA Awards Radio.
With exclusive behind-the-scenes interviews, special events, and a simulcast of country music's biggest night.
The 51st CMA Award Show on ABC.
Featuring live performances from Luke Bryan.
Randy Lambert.
Thomas Rudd.
And more.
Live from Nashville on The Highway. Tomorrow at 8, 7 Central.
CMA Awards Radio.
Sirius XM Channel 56.
This is Fresh Air. I'm Terry Gross, back with Pete Souza, who is the chief official White House photographer during President Obama's 2 terms. Souza has a new book collecting some of his photos from the Obama years and the stories behind them. It's called Obama: An Intimate Portrait. So in some ways, I think you're more famous now than you were when you were the White House photographer.
Damn.
Because people have just been captivated with your Instagram account, in which you basically you spent a lot of time shadowing President Trump, and every time, well, not every time, but many times when he'd say something that wasn't true, you'd post something, you'd post a photo that kind of showed how President Obama handled it. Or, you want to describe one of your favorites? One of your favorite examples of that?
Well, I'll start by saying that for the most part, what I've tried to do with my current Instagram feed is display public domain photos and be somewhat subtle and respectful in the words that I write. And I think people can interpret them.
Oh, and I would say the way people interpret it, everybody says that you've been like trolling Trump or throwing shade. Those are the 2 most often used ways of describing it.
I gotta say that I had to, when somebody wrote a story about throwing shade, I actually had to look that up because I really didn't know what it meant.
And then what was your reaction when you found out what it meant?
I kind of laughed, I guess. I'll say this, I do think that compared to what some people write on Twitter, I'm being very respectful in the way I present my Instagram feed.
Let
recently, after 4 American soldiers were killed in Niger, President Trump was accused of mishandling a phone call to the grieving widow of one of these men. And President Trump said that if you look at President Obama and other presidents, most of them didn't make calls. And then describe what you did on your Instagram account.
First of all, I'd say that I try not to even mention President Trump in my Instagram feed. And I actually give him the benefit of the doubt in terms of the call that he made to this widow, where, those are difficult calls to make. And I don't think he intentionally meant to make this woman feel bad. But, she did, and he should have just let it go, as far as I'm concerned. But then he tried to turn it into, blaming President Obama for not making calls, and Bush and Clinton, and I spent 8 years with this man, and we went to Walter Reed, I think 24 times in 8 years, where we saw sometimes severely injured soldiers, and he would spend hours at Walter Reed with these soldiers, their family. When we would do events around the country, we would inevitably have private meetings with Gold Star families, meaning the families of soldiers killed in action. And so I thought it was my duty, if you will, to post pictures of President Obama in some of these situations to show that maybe President Obama did more than some people realized in terms of our wounded soldiers and Gold Star families.
After President Trump was photographed having a security meeting at a dinner in Mar-a-Lago when North Korea tested a missile, and he was having this meeting like in the open, and everybody at this dinner could have observed it. I think it was somebody at the dinner who took the photo. You posted a photo of the special secure location that was erected when the president was traveling, and there was a need for a very secure meeting. And you write that everyone had to leave their BlackBerry outside the area. So you posted a photo from March 2011 that was an example of that. Comment?
Comment is that speaks for itself.
What was your most stressful moment, if you can narrow it down to one or two, when you were the White House photographer?
I'll start out by saying that compared to what some photojournalists do, you had my friend Lindsay Addario on a while back, who puts herself into extremely dangerous situations to capture life on the edge of war zones. She's been kidnapped. Compared to that, my job was not stressful. I think the hard times for me were just the constant 24/7 aspect of this job. And
I gotta find a McDonald's, dude.
Toll that it takes
I might even go for a Burger King. That's how bad it is.
On you in terms of your family life. These long Asia trips. The President Trump's on this long Asia trip right now. Those are brutal on your body, and you're working on fumes and adrenaline in those situations. They're really long days. You're not getting good sleep, and so those were the hard times. But again, I compared to what other photographers have to do to get pictures. My job is not that stressful.
So you said like you were basically on call 24/7. Were you ever awakened in the middle of the night with a call saying something big is happening, get over here so you can document it?
The one that comes to mind is there was a big tsunami, and I can't remember if it was Japan or Indonesia, and they had woken up the president, and then they go down their list and they call other people, they call me. And my question was always, is the president coming to the Oval Office or the Situation Room?
And if the answer was no, then I'd go back to sleep. Just come in early the next morning. Because usually because of communication these days, phone, BlackBerry messages and things like that, oftentimes the president would get these calls in the middle of the night, but it would be like a 5-minute call with the chief of staff or national security advisor. And there were probably only a couple times where he would actually come down to the office in the middle of the night.
If you're just joining us, my guest is Pete Souza, and he was the official White House photographer during all of President Obama's 8 years in office in the White House. And now Pete Souza has a new book collecting some of those photographs of Obama, an intimate portrait. We'll be back after we take a short break. This is Fresh Air.
From this station and from 23andMe, a personalized genetic service dedicated to helping people learn what their 23 pairs of chromosomes say about their health, traits, and ancestry. Learn more at 23andme.com. And from Rhodes Scholar, a nonprofit educational travel institution offering scholarships for family caregivers to experience educational adventures in 50 states and Canada at roadscholar.org/caregiver. This is Fresh Air, and if you're just joining us, my guest is Pete Souza. He was the official White House photographer during all of President Obama's 8 years in office in the White House. And now Souza has a new book collecting some of those photos called Obama, an Intimate Portrait. So you've said that, being a White House photographer is really a job for someone in their mid-30s or 40s, and you were 54 when you started.
Gosh, now the whole world's gonna know.
You watched Obama age. We all watched Obama age in offices. Every president does. Do you feel like you aged more than the 8 years?
Maybe ask my wife. I did. My hair didn't turn as gray as President Obama's, but like now I've got this bald spot that's kind of up the top of my head, which kind of annoys me. But I guess that comes with as you age. So
I think you just blame Obama.
Yeah. No, to be serious for a second. I mean, I tried to. One of the things that I admire about President Obama, and I'm somewhat jealous of, is he's a very disciplined person in terms of exercise and diet. And, people say he aged. Well, that's mostly, because his hair is kind of turning gray. But I bet he's probably in better shape today than he was in January 2009. And, I took a page from that, and I did try to exercise regularly, try to eat right. Those things make a difference.
Before you were President Obama's White House photographer, you were one of the photographers for the White House during the Reagan administration. President Reagan had started his career in Hollywood, so he had been used to earlier in his life publicity shots and having films that he was in. So I imagine he had a different sense of photography than other presidents because of that Hollywood experience. Did you get a sense of that from him?
Yeah, I think he was more aware of photographers and photography, and especially when it came to doing these portrait sessions, which President Obama hated to do. He hated to actually pose for, magazine covers or for photo shoots. He hated that. Whereas President Reagan, I think, accepted that more and was more willing to give time to photographers to, sort of create these photographs for the magazine or, for a cover or for like Time and Newsweek would often do portraits in the Oval Office or outside the Oval Office, and he was very much more accommodating for those kind of situations than President Obama.
So did your political feelings affect
necessarily agree with some of the things that President Reagan was doing, but I did feel that he was a genuine person who, in his mind, was doing what he thought was right for the country. Like, it'd be difficult to photograph someone that you didn't like, but in terms of whether everything the man you're photographing, if you agree with everything they do or don't, that's not an issue for me.
So after President Trump's inauguration, you were in the helicopter with President Obama and Michelle Obama as they left Washington, as they were headed off to a vacation. You took a final shot of the president in the helicopter gazing over the White House as the helicopter flew over the White House. Then you landed someplace, I'm not sure where, and then I assume you said goodbye to the president and Michelle Obama. What was that moment like for you? That goodbye?
That was a very emotional flight. There was a few staff along for the ride, and I remember talking to my fellow staff members, saying how excited I was that I now only had one device. I had my personal iPhone, and I no longer had a BlackBerry, and that's how I cut ties to the White House. That, to me, was the greatest thing to let go of, is that BlackBerry. And I remember walking down the aisle saying, I only have one device. And we flew to Palm Springs, and it was the one time where we encountered weather so severe that we couldn't land. And we made 4 or 5 or 6 attempts to land in Palm Springs, and we couldn't because of the fog. And that was a little unnerving, where the plane was going down and then it was quick going back up, and that happened several times. We ended up landing at some military base like an hour away or something like that. And so it was because of that, it was sort of anticlimactic saying goodbye to them. Plus, it was not like a final goodbye. When I said my final goodbyes to President Reagan at the end of his administration, I didn't know if I would ever see him again because I was not that close to him personally. When I said goodbye to President Obama in Palm Springs, I hugged both he and Michelle, but I knew that I would see them again. So it was a final goodbye. It was like, enjoy your vacation. There were a handful of us that then stayed on the plane, and we just flew right back to D.C. and dropped them off.
Pete Souza, it's been great to talk with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was an honor, really, to be here talking to you.
An honor to have you. Just tell me really quickly, what kinds of photos are you taking now?
I am still trying to figure that out. This year has been my book year. I've had a couple assignments. I'm friends with the musician Brandy Carlisle, and she has a new record coming out next year. So I spent a week with her out in Seattle.
All right, lots of colors coming up
of her for her new record. So I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out. But next year I'll be doing some new photography.
All right. Well, good luck to you. Thank you again.
Thanks.
Pete Souza was President Obama's chief official White House photographer. His new book of photos and text is called Obama, An Intimate Portrait. After we take a short break, our jazz critic Kevin Whitehead will remember composer and pianist Muhal Richard Abrams, who died last week. This is Fresh Air. fresh air. Composer and pianist Muhal Richard Abrams died last week at age 87. He may be best known as the guiding light behind the long-running co-op, the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians, the AACM. In later years, Abrams mostly reported as an improvising pianist. Jazz critic Kevin Whitehead says this lion of the avant-garde was also a great jazz composer. This is Mama and Daddy from 1980.
AACM collective and mentor to many other influential musicians. He was also an effective advocate for funding composers with backgrounds like his, steeped in jazz but eager to take on a wider world. Abrams composed electronic music, wrote for classical musicians, and improvised in open settings. But he may not get enough credit as one of the late 20th century's great composers for jazz orchestra. Muhal came up in Chicago and loved to dip back into the wellspring of the blues. Richard Abrams in a 1990 version. His modern take on old 8-bar blues and stop-time rhythms. Muhal would modernize early jazz forms and make up new ones. He had a keen ear for orchestration, knew how to keep a clear melody line going, even as the instruments kept changing. Studying electronic music gave him a fresh perspective on instrumental timbres, and he came up with striking combinations, like fusing percussive vibraphone with strained winds. And he knew how to set up those gorgeous colors. Richard Abrams. The albums for large and medium-sized bands he made in the 1980s and 90s make his best case as composer in or out of the tradition. The albums Blue, Blue, Blue and the Haringa Suite are good introductions. In Muhal's writing, you can hear traces of Ellington with his own blue color ballad, Gil Evans's sprawling chord voicings, and Charles Mingus's romantic sweep and controlled chaos. But Muhal had his own voice and ways of developing material. He was great at pulling you along, episode by episode, as he brought the orchestra to a boil. This is from Haringa.
this case Hillary Clinton, who had not yet secured the nomination. When somebody becomes the nominee of their party, they effectively inherit the national party and can take over the DNC in this case. But Hillary Clinton was one of, three candidates at the time, Bernie Sanders and Martin O'Malley being the other two. And she was able to exercise this control that Bernie Sanders and O'Malley did not have.
So it's funny because the story of the weekend says, Donovan says no rigging, and yet rigging is the word from that excerpt that got published. It got everybody's attention, and it's still rolling around.
That's right, and I just want to be clear about that story over the weekend. When she says no rigging, she means very explicitly no rigging in the electoral process, of the actual vote was not rigged. When you say Hillary Clinton won a primary, the South Carolina primary, that was not a rigged election. That's what she means by no rigging.
So there was, though, an extraordinary degree of control here. As you
Follow the road for 38 miles.
I mean, if you step back from saying, the same thing goes on with Mueller's investigation into the Russians, but if you step back from, okay, were they votes messed with, and you might say, no, but could it still be rigged? What's the difference between an extraordinary degree of control and a weak Democratic Party?
Well, it looks bad, and it more than that, it shows the power of big money in this primary process. I mean, Hillary Clinton, because she had so many wealthy donors, was able to basically buy influence with the Democratic National Committee, which gave her an unfair advantage to a more grassroots candidate like Bernie Sanders, who did not have access to donors willing to write those enormous checks. And, it's ironic because President Obama had such a people.
Follow the road for 38 miles.
This is the kind of party that he's handed over to his successor, and it was so easily, controlled by the Clinton campaign. I mean, she was sort of designated to be the party heir apparent to Obama, and Donna Brazil's account shows just how much the party was sort of moving in lockstep to support her, even though there was this very powerful grassroots movement, rising up on the left in the form of the Sanders campaign.
And the people have really run with it. Last week, it was CNN's Jake Tapper asking Senator Elizabeth Warren, prominent progressive, if she believes the Democratic primary process is rigged in favor of Hillary Clinton in the 2016 primary.
Very quickly, Senator, do you agree with the notion that it was rigged?
Yes, straight up from Senator Warren there. Here's George Stephanopoulos. He asked Donna Brazil on Monday if she agreed with Elizabeth Warren on the rigging.
I don't think she meant the word rigged, because what I said, George, as you well know, after I left this show back on July 24th, I said I would get to the bottom of everything. And that's what I did. And I called Senator Sanders to say, I wanted to make sure there was no rigging of the process. I'm on the Rules and Bylaws Committee. I found no evidence, none whatsoever. The only thing I found, which I said I found the cancer, but I'm not killing the patient, was this memorandum that prevented the DNC from running its own operation.
So, what do you make of this, Phil Berger? She's got her own credibility issues around those questions that were given to Hillary Clinton in advance of Alamo debate. She's put a lot in this book. And there's a big letter from 100 or so Clinton staffers on the weekend saying we don't recognize what she's describing here. Well, whose version of events is carrying the day?
It's a good question. The book goes far beyond just this issue of the joint fundraising agreement and the so-called cancer that she uncovered. She really paints a scathing portrait of the Clinton campaign itself and of Hillary Clinton's skills as a candidate, and described the lack of enthusiasm she saw all around the country.
She calls it anemic, talks about the order of failure, a campaign with stiff and stupid messages.
That's right. We've not seen a tell-all this extraordinary in probably a decade or two in politics. This is unusual for the party chair to come out so harshly critical of the Clinton campaign.
We are going to be talking with the Democratic current DNC chair, Tom Perez, in this hour. We're supposed to be talking with Nina Turner here in a moment as well from the Sanders side of the woods here. Philip Rucker is with us, Washington Bureau Chief for the Washington Post. You read it first. Philip, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, John.
Listeners, you can join us. You read Donna Brazil's description about Hillary Clinton's campaign and the Democratic National Committee under its thumb. Was that rigging? In hindsight, do the primaries look rigged to you, or is this just, real politics? 800-423-8255, 800-423-TALK.
protection solutions for growing businesses, including automatic backup for servers and computers, high availability and disaster recovery solutions, and automated data migration. Learn more at carbonite.com. And Linguistica 360 with News in Slow Spanish, News in Slow French, and News in Slow Italian programs. Weekly language learning shows with discussion of current events. More at newsinslow.com. News in Slow, language learning through current events.
I'm Tom Ashbrook. This is On Point. We're talking this hour about the Democrats and former DNC chair Donna Brazile raising the rigging question for the Dems' 2016 primaries, Hillary Clinton versus Bernie Sanders. You can join us this hour. Are you following this? Does rigging look like the right word to use? Was Clinton's influence inevitable given her war chest and the DNC's empty coffers? Or was this something different? We're at 800-423-8255. That's 800-423-TALK. Nina Turner joins us in just a moment. Republicans have been eager and ready to make hay on this, including the president. Here he was on Friday talking with reporters as he was about to leave on his trip to Asia.
You want to look at Hillary Clinton and you want to look at the new book that was just put out by Donna Brazile, where she basically bought the DNC and she stole the election from Bernie. So that's what you want to take a look at.
And Paul Ryan on Fox News piling on Sunday.
I've never seen anything like that. I mean, we all said that the Clintons thought they lived above the rules, but this takes the cake. I mean, this is pretty amazing. For them to basically be running the DNC in a primary, to see such a deck stack is really pretty jaw-dropping to me. No wonder the Democrats are tipped off. I would be too. It's amazing to me how the Clintons just lived above the law or above the rules of this thing.
We're going to talk with the current DNC chair, Tom Perez, in just a moment. Elizabeth Warren, was it rigged? She said yes to Jake Tapper. Here was how she elaborated on that. And the Democratic Party and the chair now, Tom Perez, going forward.
He's being tested now. This is a test for Tom Perez. And either he's going to succeed by bringing Bernie Sanders and Bernie Sanders representatives into this process, and they're going to say it's fair, it works, we all believe it, or he's going to fail. And I very much hope he succeeds.
And Donna Brazile, she's had a lot of criticism here after this book as well. Talking to George Stephanopoulos about that, she said, I've got my story to tell.
George, for those who are telling me to shut up, they told Hillary that a couple of months ago. You know what I tell them? Go to hell. And I'm going to tell my story.
We're going to Nina Turner right now from Cleveland, Ohio, president of Our Revolution. That's a group founded by Bernie Sanders, supporters to further his political revolution. She was a frequent surrogate for Sanders during his campaign, quite a fiery one, former Ohio State Senator. Nina Turner, welcome back on Point. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks, Tom. Glad to join you.
What do you make of the Donna Brazile revelations? And is this, to your lights, or was this a big primary?
I mean, Donna Brazile is telling her truth, and she has every right to tell the story. There were whispers about things that she revealed going on in Bernie crack circles all along. This is the best kept open secret that everybody knew was going on, which is that the DNC did say favoritism. It did not follow its own rules. But more importantly than what she hasn't revealed that. I mean, but the fact that the DNC itself was left bankrupt is another challenge that this party is going to have to deal with. So none of this is new, Tom, in terms of what the DNC needs to do to restore transparency, accountability, and trust. If you don't lose 1,100 seats over 8 years for nothing, notwithstanding, the fact that we need to deal with voting access and gerrymandering on top of all of that. But many people in this country are registered to believe that they are registered as independents. They lean independent, so neither political party can take great joy because they have lost confidence. But the Democratic Party has lots of work to do. We need truth and reconciliation. You can't cover this up. We got to admit that some things happen that should not have happened. And what are we going to do as a party moving forward to ensure that nothing like this ever happens again?
So you've been paying close attention for a long time, and I know the book is really just coming out in full. I guess it'll be in the stores today or soon. The publication date is just today, so we've all been reading excerpts or Phil Rucker's reporting on it. Is there really nothing new in here to your mind? Were there any details that Donna Brazile is now sharing that lit up new bulbs for you?
I mean, listen, she just revealed what was really going on. The fact that, these are the facts, that the Clinton campaign has supplemental agreements. Those are the facts. They had access that Sanders' campaign did not have. Those are Party needs to decide whether or not you're going to deal with that. You know, Senator Sanders did raise money for candidates. He raised about $5 million for candidates when he was running for president of the United States. Not only that, he got out on the picket line with Verizon, you know, Labor, the House of Labor at the same time he was running for president. But you know what, Tom, we do have a committee, and I want Democrats, and I want everybody to understand this, we have the Unity Reform Commission. Those campaigns would not have agreed to a Unity Reform Commission if there wasn't something to reform. I think we should call it the Reform and Unity Commission because you cannot have unity without reform. And it is crystal clear that the Democratic Party needs some reform. And if people are talking about rigged as if votes were switched here and there, that's not the kind of rigging that we're talking about here. It is talking about a process that was unfair not only to Senator Sanders, it was unfair to Democratic voters, it was unfair to independent voters that lean Democratic. So if we want to just clean it up, that's the stand, clean it up, and let's move on in a way that says that we have learned the lessons of 2016, and we will make sure that nothing like this, not even the appearance of impropriety, will ever happen again. That is how the Democratic Party is going to be able to win back. And you know, Senator Murphy was just here in Cleveland with me yesterday. We were doing Get Out the Vote. You know, these are the kinds of things that we have to be on the ground, just getting out the vote, talking to people, community to community, but we cannot have cover up here.
You know, we're going to go to Tom Perez in just 60 seconds. And when you talk about reforms, needed reforms, what are the top reforms?
Super delegates, 1/3 of super delegates, 400 super delegates before anybody else had declared in this campaign had already chosen a side. So we have to do something to deal with the
get rid of that, cut down the number, what?
Delegates gone all together. But there has to be a way to deal with the outside impact that super delegates have before anybody gets in the race. I mean, what about Governor O'Malley? What about Governor Lincoln Chafee? What about those folks that were in this race? We have to deal with that so that moving forward, nothing like this ever happens again. But in order to move forward, we have got to reflect on what happened in the past, truth and reconciliation, and reform in unity.
Tom Perez is coming right on here. What's your main challenge to him as we turn to him?
To make sure that he understands exactly what people to understand and things to be understood, as Stephen Covey once said. Make sure that he is willing to admit that things went wrong, terrible, and that he is going to ensure that under his leadership that nothing like this ever happens again, and that they fully expect to take the recommendations of the Reform and Unity Commission.
Nina Turner, president of Our Revolution, the group founded by Bernie Sanders and supporters to further his political revolution. Nina, thank you very much for joining us from Cleveland.
Thank you.
Turn to Washington right now, and Tom Perez, current chair of the Democratic National Committee, former U.S. Secretary of Labor. Of course, Tom Perez, thank you very much for being with us today.
It's great to be with you, Tom.
Nina Turner says the first thing she wants coming out of the Sanders camp and this whole experience is, she says, confess your sins, DNC. Step up to what was wrong. Were things wrong? So, which ones?
Well, I said from the outset of emphasis about this because we have to up our game at the DNC. We have to make sure that everything we do is fair and perceived as fair by everyone involved. That's why the first thing I did, Tom, when I won election was I asked you gentlemen to join me as a partner in the movement forward to rebuild, modernize, and earn the trust of folks. And that's exactly what I've been doing. It's really careful. It's really important, and I heard Nina articulate this, to be careful about the words that we use, because let me be clear to your listeners, the Democratic Party doesn't administer primary elections. Those are administered by states. They're not administered by the parties. The parties administer caucuses, and Senator Sanders did quite well in those caucuses. And so when we talk about something being rigged, that is a term that's a loaded term that is, I think is a day talk.
With Senator Warren, when she was asked, was it rigged, she said, yes. Jake Paper asked her, she said yes.
And I would simply say the following. What we have to do as a Democratic Party, through everything we do, and from the minute I got elected, I have understood this and I've acted upon it, is to make sure that every process we have is fair to everyone involved, not just the candidates, but that voters have an opportunity to be heard. That's why we have a Unity and Reform Commission, and I'm looking forward to getting their final recommendations. We have another meeting coming up next month, and I look forward to it.
Can you get more specific?
That every eligible.
Can you get more specific about what, like, she said, the attorney saying, step up to what went wrong. So, I know you want to up your game, but can you be more specific about what went wrong if things went wrong that you now want to fix?
Here, let me tell you about what we're fixing, okay?
Well, no, I want to know what went wrong. I want some, she says truth and reconciliation. That means look back and be honest.
Absolutely. And what we have to do is make sure that every point in the process where we have control, that we're doing things that are fair to everyone involved. So, for instance, we will be setting the primary debate schedule long before we know who the candidates are. And the purpose of that, Tom, is to eliminate any sense that somehow the primary debate schedule is being set in a way to help one candidate over another.
A lot of people said it was set for Hillary. Yeah.
Oh, and again, I totally understand that. And I think the DNC fell short in many important ways during the 2016 cycle. And I accept responsibility for fixing that. I accept responsibility for earning the trust of voters. And I'll tell you, the best example of the progress we're making is in Virginia, because what we should be talking about right now, Tom, is the elections that are today in Virginia and New Jersey. And in Virginia, we had a spirited primary campaign between Tom Perriello and Ralph Northam. The media tried to paint it as another Bernie, Hillary, proxy war. Guess what happened in fact, Tom? They ran a spirited high road campaign. They talked about the issues, and frankly, they agree on over 90% of the issues. Their focus may be a little bit different, but what they agree on far exceeds what they disagree on. Campaign, they had record turnout. Record turnout.
We'll see where that goes. It's a big vote today. Yeah. It's
and everywhere I go, Tom, I think this is really important for your listeners. I 700 miles I put on the car over the weekend in Virginia. Now, one question about Donna Brazil. Everything was about what do we do moving forward to win on Tuesday. It was Bernie people, it was Hillary people, it was everybody else coming together. That's what we're focused on.
I hear that, but you know there are heartbeat in here. Here's the big question for the presidential election coming up. How do you keep the DNC out of the pocket of the big money candidate, whoever that is next time? How do you avoid repeating that cycle?
We already have a joint fundraising agreement that we've signed with all 50 states now. Joint fundraising agreements are partnerships. And by the way, these fundraising agreements were offered.
Yeah, but you had those last time, and Clinton came in and the campaign came in and basically took over Donna Brazil.
Well, but again, the joint fundraising agreement was offered to all the candidates. Senator Sanders, as I understand it, signed one, and Senator Clinton.
Yeah, but she had the money, so she got the control. How do you avoid that next time?
Well, but again, we have a joint fundraising agreement with our state parties now. It's a partner. It's the reason we're doing it now, 3 years ahead of the election, Tom, is because what we do with the money that we're raising now, we don't have any candidates running for president right now. And what we're doing, and the purpose of joint fundraising agreements is they have been around. They are not a new thing. They've been around for decades. The purpose is to build the infrastructure of success. And the reason we entered into one now, and for the first time in our history, we've gotten all 50 states to sign on, is because we're using it to build organizing infrastructure, to put boots on the ground now to talk to voters, to build a technology infrastructure that's second to none, to build a 50-state voter protection and empowerment infrastructure, because voter suppression is a staple in the Republican playbook.
Tom, you've got a lot of people listening to you with questions. I really want to let them come in here because I think part of this is addressing the views that people actually have about what's happened and what will happen. Ashley in Auburn, Alabama, you're on with the chair of the DNC, Tom Perez.
Hi, Tom. Hi.
How are you?
Doing well. So I have a few different things I'd like to address. So first, as far as the fundraising agreement with the state. So the last time this happened, something along the lines of 90-something, that was 98, 99%, a huge amount of that money ended up going back into the DNC / Hillary for America. So the states got almost nothing. They signed up for something, but they got almost nothing. I live in Alabama, where the Democratic Party is completely broke. They refuse to help any of the Democratic candidates, and I don't know why. Funding, I'm sure, is part of it. The other thing, as far as unity is concerned, so it doesn't say much for unity when Keith Ellison's backers within the DNC were just purged from their roles. Okay, there was something like 8 of them. There was a transgender woman, I believe, an Arab American, and
Ashley, our time with Tom is short. Let us pick those two things. Do you see rigged or fixed, or what are you looking back, Ashley? What do you see?
Bernie's entire hand because all those predictions, like I said, is because of that same track against him.
After our time is short, Tom, here is, how do you do, what do you do next time? So let's just flow back to one candidate.
Let me answer as much as I can of there are about 4 or 5 questions here. Number one, our joint fundraising agreements that we reached with states. As of last month, we have decreased our monthly investment in state parties by a third. In addition, we've established a $10 million innovation fund, the purpose of which is to help us do base voter engagement, millennial engagement, and to build the infrastructure of success in states across the country. We are absolutely doing work to help people like Doug Jones in Alabama. And everything we do at the DNC, our new slate of candidates, and with all due respect, we have the most diverse slate of DNC members now that we've ever had. And we've doubled the number of millennials. We now have a Native American caucus for the first time because we increased the number of Native Americans. We have more union members on the DNC than we've ever had before because those are the partners that we need. And our North Star in everything that I do, Tom, is how can we help build a party that can succeed. And everywhere I go, and Virginia is on my mind because that's where I've spent the most time. What people are telling me, I had half a dozen people who supported Bernie Sanders come up to me at various events over the weekend saying to me, I supported Bernie and I see what you're trying to do and you're making progress. Keep it up.
It delivers mild stimulation throughout the night to keep your airway open.
That's ZipRecruiter.com/news. ZipRecruiter.com/news.
Can I get some cool Victorious music? Sweet. See, I'm young, but I'm renting a place of my own. I'm working hard, good friends, good job, and I have a lot of expensive stuff I need to insure. So I just got renter's insurance from Amica. Now all those things are protected, even when I take them on the road. And it only costs like $4 a week. And that feels like victory.
Get your Amica renter's insurance quote now at Amica.com. Welcome to Amica. This is suppleness insured.
As a small business owner, you know that your customers are the heart of your business. But how do you reach them effectively across devices and across platforms? With GetResponse, the marketing automation platform built for small business, you can tailor your message with drag-and-drop editors and reach your customers through email, on social media, and optimize your delivery based on your customer's device. Plans start at $15 per month. Price free for 30 days. No credit card required. Sign up today at GetResponse.com.
On Saturday, Penn State lost a tough win to Michigan State after MSU's kicker nailed a field goal as time ran out. Now, for the average sports fan, the story ends there. But cameras caught Penn State head coach James Franklin sprinting across the field after the game to wrangle his players up, demanding they get back out there and shake hands with their opponents. He said, quote, "We're going to lose with class, and we're going to shake people's hands and give them credit because they deserved it." End quote. What do you make of that, Rick?
Well, you know why this is so powerful? It's the opposite of taking a knee. It reminds you of the initial purpose of sports, which is sportsmanship. It teaches you fairness, clean play, how to endure hardship, humility, how to endure loss, how to be a good loser and a good winner. And this is why I think NFL is dying right now, is because the knee is a consequence of the decline of sportsmanship, because NFL is being driven by spectacle, celebrity culture, the coarsening of our culture. We become ruder, we become louder, we don't. This kind of thing just doesn't happen anymore. And this is, again, the injection of politics into a venue. Politics stresses the differences between people. In football, in teamwork, you're supposed to be a team. You even have things in common with the other team. You sometimes have more in common with the other team than your own team. But what politics does is it stresses the division, and that's why when you look at this, you go, he's getting the guy to go shake the other guy's hand. Now, that's the opposite of everything we see these days.
Yeah, I think it's excellent. You know, a very good leadership example of good sportsmanship, good conduct and behavior to always, you know, be classy and take the wins, but take the losses as well. You really see the character of people when they lose after a tough game. You know, go out there and show that, you know, you played your best and treat the other team with respect. I think it goes a long way to say, you know, reputation and team spirit and, you know, doing
sportsmanship, and that's man. And it's about teaching people to be really good gentlemen. And we could use a few more of those around this country. And the other thing is that he's not just a coach. So he's a head coach, and he's not just calling plays, but he's I know you hate the term, and it kind of creeps me out too, the whole life coach thing.
Right.
But being involved in sports does teach you about life, and the lessons that you learn on the field, you will take to the boardroom, or you're at a table, if you're going to be communicating with somebody with civility. I really thought it was very powerful, and I hope other coaches emulate it.
You know, Jesse, he was an assistant coach at Maryland, and when they do the coin toss, some of the Maryland players didn't shake hands. He flipped out. He wasn't that coach at that time, but he said, "You guys better shake hands." And this reminds me of that moment.
It does. He was in trouble a couple weeks ago for poor sportsmanship himself when he tried to ice the opposing team's kicker after they were winning 56-0 to salvage a shutout. It actually worked. So anyway, he apologized for that, but I like what he did here. Reminds me of my father when he got a job up here in New York from Philadelphia. The company up here sent people to interview his squash buddies down in Philly to see if my dad exhibited good sportsmanship. You know, if he was a cursor, or if he didn't shake hands afterwards, they probably wouldn't hire him.
Yeah, got it.
Not it's the racket sport.
What are we going to do with him?
I don't know.
You don't know, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, before we go, I just want to say Roy Halladay, the two-time Cy Young winner, Philadelphia Phillies, Toronto Blue Jays, died today in a plane crash. We are sorry to see him go. A terrific thing. Next, some interesting fashion news from America's fashion icon. Yes, Greg Gutfeld. Yes,
If I were you, I'd take them calls.
Starting a new business? Get started on the right foot with a business phone number from Grasshopper, the entrepreneur's phone system. With Grasshopper, you can choose a vanity phone number that's easy to remember and makes you look professional. Calls will be forwarded to your existing mobile phone or landline. You can even make calls or send texts using that same number with our iPhone and Android apps. See why hundreds of thousands of small businesses have chosen Grasshopper. Go to grasshopper.com to see how it works.
Your office, whether it's a home office or an office, it's where you conduct your business. It reflects who you are. You've got a handsome desk, an ergonomic chair, even your pencil holder completes the look. Everything is right. Well, everything but that crummy plastic mat under your chair. It dents and cracks and the corners curl up. I mean, why do you have that? It's like installing custom windows and then tacking up sheets for curtains. You need the glass chair mat by Vitraza. Beautiful, stylish, smooth to roll on, and tough enough to hold 1,000 pounds. And it comes with a 10-year warranty. A great-looking Vitraza glass chair mat will complete your office, not embarrass it. Now, you can't get glass chair mats at the office superstore. You order direct at Vitraza.com. Shipping is free, and you save 10% with discount code SUPER. Read their 5-star reviews at Vitraza.com. That's V as in Victor, ITRAZZA.com. And remember, save 10% with discount code SUPER. Vitraza.com.
Hey, reading the mortgage meltdown of 2008? Have you tried to get a mortgage since then and been turned down? Or maybe you haven't even tried because your credit score is stuck at 585, or your tax returns have too many write-offs. Well, Cash Call Mortgage has great news for you. We've just introduced programs for people who've been told no. And what's doubly exciting is that we can solve your mortgage problems with no closing costs, no points, title, escrow, and no fees.
Wait, Cash Call, are you saying you now have credit and income-solving mortgages with no closing costs? Are you kidding?
You heard right. A credit or income-solving loan with no closing costs. Call 877-860-CASH, and we'll work with you to solve your mortgage issues. Make the Cash Call at 877-860-CASH.
First Mortgages, Impact Mortgage Corp, DBA Cash Call Mortgage, 1 City Boulevard, Orange, California, 92868, NMLS 128231. Equal housing lender, not licensed in all states, not available in Washington State. Call 855-657-9910 for licensing terms and restrictions.
That's 877-860-CASH.
Another cyber attack is spreading fast. What's going to happen when it reaches your laptop, server, or smartphone? If you've got Kaspersky Lab Internet Security, you don't have to worry one bit. Over the past 2 decades, Kaspersky has developed 30 layers of protection to stop the threats that others miss. It's one more reason Kaspersky is the world's most awarded cybersecurity and the choice of 400 million users. Get your protection today at Kaspersky.com.
and restores the natural alignment to your feet. To learn more about this life-changing procedure and to find a specialist near you, please visit AlignMyFeet.com. Refuse to let your feet slow you down. Visit AlignMyFeet.com. That's AlignMyFeet.com.
America's #1 cable news network. This is Fox News on Sirius XM Channel 114.
This is an M65 Anarchy jacket. It was once available at Barney's, disappeared. Described as a military-inspired cloak, it only goes for, and I stress only, $375. Allegedly aping the spirit of Antifa, it costs more than your average suit, the symbol of evil, greedy capitalism. So this jacket is military-inspired. So I guess now it's good to be inspired by the military, if it's only fashion and fascist-based, of course. God forbid you're actually inspired by actual elements of military service, patriotism, selflessness, bravery. No, instead, be inspired to dress like someone who actually hates such traits and prefers to mock any service to one's country. The jacket maker, Alpha Industry,
In 1 mile, exit right.
The U.S. military, they claim this jacket encompasses expressions on individuality. Yes, how individualistic, covering yourself in phony slogans and meaningless symbols. Why not just slap bumper stickers across your face, you do?
Oh my goodness.
So in the most expensive city in the nation, Manhattan, within the priciest store, you can outfit the trust fund revolutionary, the champion of the downtrodden, hater of the man, enemy combatant of big business, greed, and patriarchy. He can wear his hipster jacket at brunch to parade his progressive banalities while dripping cage-free.
Take exit 23 to the right, then bear left.
All for $400. That's a bargain for us too. Now we can spot the loser a mile away.
So,
Kimberly,
yes, if I see this coming at me, let me tell you, they better go in the other direction.
Yes.
It would have man
Exit right.
this too.
I would hope so.
Like the man bun, or even the high top man bun that's up
I
here.
think it's called the dork knob. I believe I heard the dork knob.
I think this is way too expensive. It'd be better if it was something that was like, you know, $55 at, I don't even know, probably nowhere, but the point is just ridiculous.
In the military, you earn a jacket like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. It just seems like you're trying too hard.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
It comes with a little hood in case you want to break windows.
Because you don't really want to have to go out and do it. You
That's the front, by the way.
or protest at Berkeley.
Yeah, but you know, here's on the back it has an anarchy symbol, and on the front, anarchy means chaos. Why can't we just steal this jacket? Aren't they encouraging theft? Like, why do I have to pay for it? Why can't I just break the window and steal the jacket?
Good point.
So I'm just going to be a cranky old man because I think the jacket's ridiculous, but it's ridiculous because this jacket's been around since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Basically, it's people who want to say, I'm hip, I'm different, I'm anti-establishment, I'm a hipster, etc. But I mean, it's a ridiculous jacket.
Onto I-787 north toward downtown Albany.
I know they think, and I bet they pay a lot of money, right, for these torn pants, right?
Yeah.
I think this is nuts, but it's the fashion look, right?
Yeah. You know, Jesse, I called to see if they had one that had the collar up for you.
Listen, I don't like what you said about cage-free eggs. I like cage-free eggs. I think they taste better. And if you read the little blurb in the Barney's catalog, it says, looking good while you stand.
In 1 mile, exit right.
They also got the color wrong. If you watch Antifa, they're all wearing black. So fire the fashion person. I respect, though, Barney's for trying to capitalize off people who hate capitalism.
Yeah, that's
a trick.
So, Dina, we went to find this. It was out there this weekend when they were having the Antifa protest. They claim it's not an Antifa jacket, it's fired. But we can't find it. It's no longer at Barney's. And we called the company. Sean called the company, and they refused to acknowledge where this jacket went.
So they're hidden somewhere in the storeroom. They're going to be on eBay later on. Interesting. I came across a couple of articles.
Oh, excellent.
About how politics was the biggest trend at New York Fashion Week.
Wow.
17. So I mean, this is basically, I guess, Barney's is just following on.
Yes.
What the people want.
Take exit 4 to the right, then exit right.
And they had the T-shirts. Nevertheless, she persisted for like $300. Well, my friend Ann has that bag too.
Yeah,
every time too.
and I know a lot of women who have that nasty woman T-shirt and stuff. So I mean, they're just making money off of politics. But you know, I just think even if it's self-expression, it's just so it's like
Exit right.
that the rich are buying these crazy.
Right. If you can afford this, you're not Antifa.
Yeah, I don't think
Wolf come to this year's decades ago.
Correct. That's exactly right.
All right, one more thing is up next.
It's my prayer you will respond to the saving grace of Jesus Christ.
Celebrating Billy Graham's 99th birthday, SiriusXM presents the Billy Graham Show. Messages from 7 decades of his ministry.
Exit right.
To live through, hear reflections from family and former presidents.
We're more than a body and a mind. We are a soul.
Receive messages of hope on the Billy Graham Channel on now, exclusively at SiriusXM 145. And
Turn left onto Broadway.
Meet beautiful window coverings. Introducing Smart Shades by Budget Blinds and Lutron. Automated shades that open and close at the touch of a button. Budget Blinds has been in business for over 25 years and is North America's...
In 1/4 of a mile, veer left onto State Street.
...is the most established name in smart home technology. So, now you can expect the best in both fashion and function with our beautifully styled smart shades. Choose from an extensive designer selection of fabrics, colors, and textures, from traditional to contemporary. Our smart shades are so easy to use and easy to afford. Get high style and expert service for every budget. Get smart shades from Budget Blinds and Lutron. Call 800-780-8494 now for your free smart home consultation. 800-780-8494 or go online to budgetblinds.com. At participating independently owned and operated franchises only. Ask for details.
Licensed in all states. Product availability varies. Each may be compensated on enrollment.
Michael Stahl is my guess. He's the Vice President of Health Markets. Health Markets is trying to make this crazy Medicare system easier to understand. Would you explain how it works?
So Health Markets offers a free service with access to thousands of Medicare plans nationwide to help folks maximize their benefits and save their money. Enrollment in the right plan is not automatic. With so many Medicare options out there, it can be confusing. So my advice is to don't go it alone. Get on by yourself to help find a plan. It may cost less. It may cover more with lower co-payments, more choices like dental and vision care, and the freedom to see the doctors you choose. Best of all, Medicare assistance is free. Our licensed agents can do the work for you, making the process really easy. The Medicare enrollment deadline is only weeks away, so it's important to act now.
Call Health Markets today.
In 1/4 of a mile, turn right.
800-550-0867. That's 800-550-0867. 800-550-0867.
What interest rate would you rather pay on your credit card debt? 16% or less than 6%? The answer is obvious. Lightstream. Because with Lightstream and your good to excellent credit, you may be able to consolidate credit card debt and dramatically cut your interest rate to as low as 5.49% APR with AutoPay. Plus, radio listeners get an additional rate discount. Just go to lightstream.com/rate. With average interest rates on credit card debt at 16%, Lightstream could save you thousands of dollars. So why would you pay excessive interest charges when you don't have to? The application takes just minutes, and there are no fees and no pressure. Just lower rates, one low fixed monthly payment, and huge savings. So if you have good to excellent,
turn right
today and get a special interest rate discount when you go to lightstream.com/rate. That's lightstream.com/rate.
You have reached your destination. Your destination is on the right.
0.5% auto-pay discount available when you select auto-pay prior to loan funding. Advertised rates, terms, and promotions are subject to change without notice. Conditions and limitations apply. Visit lightstream.com for important terms and conditions.
Good time now for one more thing. Jesse.
Thank you. So Trump did one of the most Trump things ever when he went and ate with the Prime Minister of Japan. Instead of ordering sushi or tempura, some of the best food you could ever have over in Japan, the man orders a well-done cheeseburger. Yes, and he locally sourced it. The beef was from America, apparently, and he's got the Heinz ketchup over there, so well